No,
Well, that's fair. What do I qualify as?
I'm not sure I'm at liberty to discuss that.
Hmm. I'm not sure. No, that's definitely intended to be insulting. Oh, so how has the week been, Masters? What got you peopled out?
Oh, it was mainly just broke butt graduation last night.
Hmm. Too many all at once, or just too many in general?
No, just one person in particular.
Uh oh. Wait a second. Was it this week that I was making jokes? I mean, not that I ever stopped making jokes, but oh yeah, that was Tuesday. I remember Tuesday.
What, Tuesday?
Uh, when you were having social anxieties.
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness.
Did anything develop from that, or has it just not been long enough yet?
Uh,
What's that?
It hasn't been long enough yet.
Okay. Should we discuss at all about how apparently Chris Pratt is your true love?
Well, I've learned a lot about myself this week. Because I thought it was John Burrowman.
Okay.
And then the internet's telling me it's uh, um, Ryan Reynolds. But then this quiz tells me it's Chris Pratt. So I'm very, very confused right now.
That is a very wide range.
I know, right?
Like, they need to pick one. For reference, those who are watching, you can join on the World's Worst Podcast discussion thread on the Discord. There's a link to that in the description down below. We're posting a link to the quiz in question about if you're a Christian, um, who your perfect spouse will be. Apparently, Masters is Chris Pratt. I looked into Gina Carano somehow.
I know exactly how you lucked into Gina Carano. Like some of those answers, I could see Gina Carano in those answers.
Would those be the ones where it's asking about like your special skills and they were like obscure
Yes,
Star Wars trivia?
yes, yes. That one in particular, struck a chord.
Uh huh. It's fair. Um, but I mean, it's not that bad. Like I'm not totally obsessed. I'm not
Yeah.
upset with the result either. I mean, she's not even in Star Wars anymore.
Oh, you mean you're not obsessed with Gina Carano? Okay. I
Well,
thought you were talking about you're not obsessed with Star Wars.
no, no, no. Let's not get that confused. Um, like we did have a conversation a couple of months ago. I
You and
actually
Gina Carano?
what?
You and Gina Carano?
No, about Gina Carano.
No.
About how that at one point we're both like, oh yeah, she's like totally not our type, and then she appeared on Earth and Ned, and we're like, maybe I was wrong. um, yeah, that kind of thing. And say, although I do find it funny that you got to take the test twice, and then you came up with Amy Grant. Maybe I should take the girls' side too, just to see what mine would be.
You mean the guy side?
Well, I took the guy's side, and it said I should have Gina Carano, and then
Oh, you mean take it as the girl?
as the
Okay.
girl, yeah. Are they the same questions?
No, they're a little bit different.
Oh, I should see the difference. Okay, what's your ideal date night? Newsboys concert, local Christian high school's football game. I can Philippians 4:13. Okay, snuggling up at least a foot apart and watching Parks and Rec. Worship night around a beach bonfire. None of the above. I'd rather stay in and text. Well, that just sounds abysmal. Um,
Yeah, a lot of these I was like, none of them? None of the above?
yeah, I like the guy from Parks and Rec. I can't remember what his name is, but the guy who's just like, I love America and eats
Chris
meat.
Pratt?
No, not Chris
Oh
Pratt.
no, yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't remember his name. I never
I
watched
don't either.
Parks
Ron
and Rec.
Swanson.
Yeah, Ron Swanson. Well, let's go with
That's
Parks and
that's the
Rec.
character.
That's okay. I don't care about the actor. Ron Swanson is more interesting. What's your denomination? Well, wacky charismatic who worship like a flaky inflatable tube man. Clearly that one. Spiritual gift. Not football. Not vegging out on Netflix. Watching everyone else at church do all the hard work and calling it encouragement. Being off key during worship or sarcasm. Wow, those last three are tough to pick from. uh You see, the fun thing is, I used to like stand up at the front at my previous church, and I would intentionally sing off key to try and mess up the people on the platform.
Hold up, I'm going to share something with you.
Okay.
Um,
You're going to share something with
Phil,
me or with the group?
yes, with you, and you can
Okay.
determine if you want to share it with the group.
Uh-oh. Oh, Lord. Like, that's a whole... We're going to finish this quiz first. I'm not ready for that. Let's go with sarcasm, because that's probably going to be really useful here in a second. I might need some extra sarcasm. Favorite book
It just popped up on my feed, and I'm like, huh?
Let's keep that one same. What is your favorite biblical character? King David, Melchizedek. Not characters or historical figures. Ooh. Oh, man. Yeah, go with that one. Favorite Christian movie? uh, from the available options, Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's go with that Christian movie. Important quality you want in a mate. With unique and varied personality. Congratulations, you have the gift of singleness.
Makes so much sense.
Oh my word! I'm not even kidding. Oh man, like I've. We couldn't find a celebrate for you. You're destined for singleness forever. Enjoy your gift. Remember, there's no returning God's gifts. So apparently, as a woman, I'm undateable. That's great news. uh,
I would actually argue that it's backwards.
oh, so you mean you're like picking out stuff as the girl, and like, okay, I could tolerate this in that person, kind of thing.
No, I'm saying that you're undateable as a guy.
Oh well, I mean, apparently Gina Carano doesn't believe that.
He hasn't met you yet.
That's fair. There's a song about that. Um, although in the context that I use that I decided to take your statement, it's a very different song. It sounds a lot more like a stalker. Like, I know everything about you. I just haven't met you yet. But on Tuesday at 3 o'clock when you leave your hair appointment, that's the time. Okay, what is this thing you sent me? r/atheism. So, number one, this person is posting in the wrong subreddit. Because if you believe in Satan, you are by definition not an atheist.
Yeah, please read some of the comments as well as the post.
Well, I'm getting to the post here. It says, okay, so lots of people that think us Satanists worship the devil, but in fact, surprisingly, most card-carrying Satanists do not worship Satan or any form of the devil. They are actually atheists. Okay. The Church of Satan, founded in the mid-1960s, explains it this way on its website. Satan to us is a symbol of pride, liberty, and individualism. Okay, that sounds a lot like Satan. Works out. Checks out. And it serves as an external metaphorical projection of our highest personal potential. We do not believe in Satan as a being or person. Fair enough. I'm new on the subreddit, but I'm glad I found it so that I could share this information. Okay, comments. Do you have any that I should look for or look out for initially?
No, they're all just, yeah.
From my understanding, Satanists are basically atheists that celebrate the power that we have within us as humans. Their aim is to reverse harmful religious indoctrination set us free from oppression and control. Okay. Satan is a Christian deity. Well, that's also fundamentally incorrect. Not a deity. He is a created being which is beneath deity. So it would make sense atheists do not believe in it. Pretty sure most atheists know this. It's the stupid cultists who don't understand mockery. Okay. This guy's complaining about the what's denomination? There's denominationalism within atheism as well. I actually think it's a shame that atheism gets divided into these subcategories, as it makes it appear like there are less of us that don't believe in any gods, and this has real world consequences. This man has just described that there is in fact Protestant, or not Protestant, but a form of Protestantism. I guess you could say that atheism is a protest against godliness. I would love to have that debate with somebody. I'll get down for photo for this, but even I see agnostics as a problem. We know that we can't prove that God exists or doesn't. Every human is agnostic. The question of atheism is only if you believe in God or not, given there's no evidence. Taking the stance that you can't know is just avoiding the question of whether you believe it's true. That's a very good point. I would tend to agree with him on that. I still find it funny that he is making a denominal argument for atheists. Were you about to say something?
I was just asking which one.
Oh, that Human 6. It's like it's down a couple. Yeah. Actually, a very cogent, well thought out argument. I appreciate his perspective. I don't agree with it, but I mean, I think agnostics are trying to make peace with theists or not offend them. I haven't had much luck arguing with Christians, so blowing them off strikes me as reasonable. But as you say, the agnostic position strikes me as dishonest. It's saying your religion is yada yada. But if you run across any mystical sun god missionaries, send them over for a chat. Okay. Also a very cogent point here. Calling yourself a Satanist when you do not believe in Satan has only one purpose: to upset conservative Christians. It is trolling, pure and simple. I would tend to agree with that. Particularly when I take that in context with the majority of people who have practiced Satanism. Yeah. The book has a cool cover. If you want to freak out an annoying Christian knocking on your door, even better if you can get them to listen to you read a few passages. Blessed are the destroyers of false hope, for they are the true messiahs. Cursed are the God adorers, for they shall be shorn sheep. Satan has been the best friend the church has ever had, as he has kept it in business all these years. I've actually heard Christians make that point. Not in this context. Really, again, not a bad argument. Also, for people who are trying to make the very humanistic claim that humans are typically not their own problem, it lends a lot of leeway to Christians who don't actually want to act Christian. That's a painfully accurate observation. The most dangerous of all enthroned lies is the holy, the sanctified, the privileged lie, the lie everyone believes to be a model truth. It is the fruitful mother of all other popular errors and delusions. Hydra-headed tree of unreason with 1,000 roots. It is social cancer. I don't understand any of the words that I just read. That one's not bad either. The Satanist knows that the praying does absolutely no good. In fact, it actually lessens the chance of success for the devoutly religious who too often sit back complacently and pray for a situation which, if they were to do something about it on their own, could be accomplished much quicker. The Bible itself teaches that faith without works is dead. So, yeah, we agree on that point, but these guys are touched in the head. Was that not what you were expecting me to see my take on that one, Masters?
No, I just thought it was funny.
Okay. So, Mr. Masters,
Yes.
Bad Batch.
You mean the Good Batch? Because it's so good.
It is good.
Continues to be good.
I really like what they're doing with Crosshair. Of course, this is also we just spent the last 10 minutes reading Satanist posts. I'm like, hey, let's talk about the bad guy. Like, I showed up ready to talk about the bad guy because he is so good. Oh, I mean, he's so good at being bad.
He's not really a bad guy. He's just a bad guy.
No, he's a bad guy. Like, and that's what makes him a bad guy, or that's what makes him a good bad guy. Like when he shoots the non-clone, I wanted that to be in the report. Like I wanted him to walk in to Tarkin and be like, "You'll notice when we're one short. This is what happens when you send amateurs to do a professional's job," and just like just like stalk past him. Or like, okay.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting that too.
Or to be like, okay, well, where's our fifth, or where's our other recruit? And he says, well, good soldiers follow orders, and he didn't follow orders. Oh, there's so many good lines they could have done there.
I think my favorite part was when they walk into their barracks, and none of the others just say anything to him. They just all go to their spots, and like you can. Even with their masks on, you can see the turmoil within their spirits because they don't have these inhibitor chips. They're having to deal with the fact that they just killed innocent civilians, but good soldiers follow orders.
Yes. And
it just blows my mind the amount of grief that we can feel coming off of them, even with their emotionless face masks on.
Well, I wouldn't really term it as grief. It's inner turmoil.
Inner turmoil, yeah, maybe not grief.
Grief,
You're right.
Grief talks about like what would speak to being like, actually connected with these people. They're like, oh, these are just people. We don't do that. Good soldiers follow orders. There's a level of detachment that Crosshair has that allows for that to be. Or that allows for him to do what he did. I wonder if Tarkin isn't really aware. Well, I mean, no, he's from like the first episode. He's clearly aware of the inhibitor chips.
Yeah, because he had them juice it up on Crosshair.
Right.
Because it was kind of working, but it wasn't like fully working.
Right, but this is kind of my point. Like, it would his actions in this episode actually make more sense if he were not aware. And they're okay, so they're kind of having the this episode is kind of having the Auschwitz guard question, if you want to get really deep on it. Auschwitz, of course, is the German concentration camp where they killed the most Jews out of any of the other concentration camps. It's the worst one. And in fact, I believe it's the only one that's still standing because they destroyed all the rest of them, but they kept Auschwitz in particular to be a testament to the depravity of human evil. And it's now like a museum to be like, we can never, as a species, go back to this ever again. But at the Nuremberg Trials in the wake of World War II, there were several guards at Auschwitz who were put on trial with all the other Nazi bigwigs, and they're just like, "Oh, who is this? Well, this is Fritz, and he's from Auschwitz." "Oh, what did you do?" "Well, I followed orders. I did what they told me to do." "Didn't you realize that what you're doing was against humanity?" "I never considered it. I just did what they told me to do." At that point, they started to question, like the question started to be like, as a human being, shouldn't you have enough mental capacity on your own to look at a situation and say, this is wrong, and stop it? And they had that great moment in this episode. It was like, hey, yeah, we're not doing this. This is wrong.
Yeah.
But good soldiers follow orders. And your lack of adherence to those orders has to be stopped. And then the rest of the soldiers were like, well, we don't want what happened to that guy to happen to us. We need to follow the orders. And that kind of became one of the main prosecution points that, like, hey, even to the point of personal sacrifice, we try to live in a society such that you almost have to, that you really do have to elevate your fellow man above yourself in situations like that. Is all you're going to do probably get yourself and him killed? Yes. But in terms of the moral response that we're looking from humankind, we want humans to say, this is wrong. We emphatically cannot proceed in doing this, even if it costs me personally. That's what we want. And it's a very Judeo-Christian mindset. You don't get that without the Bible. You don't get that without the Old Testament and the laws of Moses and all those things, and then bringing that forward even into the New Testament and modern Christian ideals. You do not get the idea of preferring somebody else above your own self-interest unless you have a Judeo-Christian mindset. That just doesn't happen because we're selfish human beings. We are selfish by default. We all default to just being like, well, what's good for me? What's the best that I can get out of the situation? How can I make my personal setup as good as possible? Which, in general, there's nothing wrong with that. But when it starts to be, when you put it in the context of Auschwitz and things like that, it becomes a major, major issue that people have to be willing and ready to answer for. And apparently, these people weren't willing to or ready to answer for that because just like, well, it was the order that was given. And what they're really trying to do is George Lucas himself said that the Empire was always his on-screen analogy for Nazi Germany, even down to the point where he's referring to their main soldiers as stormtroopers, what the Germans called their grunt troops. That was not by accident. And so Dave Filoni at this point is basically just completing or adding extra validity to that idea. And I like that. I really like how he's also pulling it off. It'll be interesting to see how they play this out, because if they're going to continue down this line of trying to bring in fresh conscripts who are not governed by an inhibitor chip, they're going to actually have to start discussing how it is that you break down the mindset of people to do those terrible atrocities. And this isn't a children's show. Like, let's not forget that they started off with introducing a semi-annoying little girl who I'm assuming is going to get better as time goes on. Like, that's their point of access for the casual viewer. Their target audience is kids, like, oh, look at this little blonde-haired girl, just like, she'll careful about that. But like, look at this cute little girl with the New Zealander accent. She's gonna be your guide as we navigate this very complicated storyline. You want to talk about how the Nazis were just following orders? let's have that conversation in a kids show. Did that go a lot farther than you were expecting it to, Masters?
Absolutely, but you make a lot of good points, and I liked it. I actually listened this time to your Star Wars rant.
Hey, the Star Wars is it is a conglomeration of imagery. Somebody posted this in one of in my church meme chat today. There's, how to offend 4 groups of geeks in one picture. And make sure I put this in the right chat here. World's Worst Podcast thread. And it's, Spock. giving the Vulcan salute, saying, "Use the Force, Harry." Gandalf. This is how to offend 4 groups of geeks in one picture. Well, it's not really actually all that offensive, because if you really dive into the mythos and like the background of how George Lucas created Star Wars, he was very heavily influenced by Star Trek, and he was fairly heavily influenced by some overarching themes from Lord of the Rings. Harry Potter wasn't around yet, but I'm quite sure if I knew anything of substance about Harry Potter, we could find a lot of Star Wars references in Harry Potter too, because you have to go progressionally as from one leads to the next.
I was actually watching Harry Potter before we started.
Oh.
Actually, I was on the phone with Brokebutt.
Ah.
But before she called, I was watching Harry Potter.
Okay. It's one of those things where it's like, at some point, I probably need to just sit down and watch them. I haven't done it. I'm lazy. I'm not reading the books. Way too lazy for that. I don't have the time for that. I worked just short of 60 hours this week. There's no time.
Fine.
There's no time to watch that many movies. Or not watch that many movies, but read that many books. I have other books I have to get read for everything else that I'm doing. And it's a much easier to watch a 2-hour movie than it is to read for 5 hours a book. Not saying that that's the more correct way to consume media. I'm quite sure the books are better. Still,
I wouldn't know.
you never read the books?
I don't read.
Oh.
Not from lack of desire.
Well, clearly there's some lack of desire, or you would find time and ways to make it happen.
It's just frustrating with my my ADD and my dyslexia. So I just don't. I don't waste my time.
So that reminds me of something. I mean, there's a topic that I want to talk with you about, but I'm not sure if I want to talk about it on the podcast or not, and it's kind of related to that.
My ADD and dyslexia?
Not yours specifically, but mental challenges in general.
Interesting.
So I sent you, like, I planned this out days in advance. And I was like, and then as we got closer, I'm like, do I actually want to talk about this on the podcast? But why not, right? Only person who's going to listen is is Sasquatch. So, and he's my cousin. That's not gonna no secrets from Sass. So I sent you this meme earlier, right? That I thought quicksand was going to be a much bigger problem as a child.
Yeah.
Like as a kid, there's a number of things that you're like, this is going to be a major problem in my life. I need to be prepared for this. Like shark attacks, quicksand.
Yep.
Meteors. Like, there's a lot of things you're just like, oh, this is going to be the worst thing ever. I have to be prepared for this. And then you never encounter any of those things ever in your life. For like 2 years, people go around, oh, I'm going to get struck by lightning, struck by lightning, struck by lightning. And it's like, it's 1 out of like 186,000 people who get struck by lightning. The chance of you actually getting struck by lightning are so infinitesimally small, it should never enter your mind. And if it ever does enter your mind, it will be right about the time where you are getting struck by lightning, in which case it won't be around for very long. Usually.
That's not true. Most people that get struck by lightning live.
That's true. I was trying to make a joke. Didn't work out. I mean, they mostly live. Lightning strike scars, though, are awesome. Like, when I found out that people can, like, survive a lightning strike, I looked up a picture of people who, like, what their scars look like. And it's like, if you're gonna get, like, a... Yeah. If you're gonna get a scar, get a lightning scar. They're gnarly.
Yeah, just at the scar store picking it out.
It's just like, yeah, let's get this one.
I think we just invented tattoos.
Well, no, that's kind of, because basically what it does is it fries it like boils your blood, so uh your veins like stand out on your skin.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's super cool.
I've seen lightning scars.
Yeah, I'm actually looking right now to see if I can find a more or less kind of halfway family friendly one that I could post in here. Um,
Kind of lightning scars you looking at there, Gabby?
just the ones that came up on Google Images, which some of them are a lot more artistic than I feel comfortable sharing.
Pictures of Harry Potter do you have?
What?
How many pictures of Harry Potter do you have?
Just one. There we go. This okay, so that one's kind of fresh and still seeping, but I mean it gets the point across pretty well. Um Apology, like gore warning for freshness, but like that's not bad. Are you there? Hello?
I'm here.
Yeah. You're just not reacting. Um so yeah. I forget where I was going with the whole lightning thing. Oh, irrational childhood fears.
Huh?
Well, so I had an irrational fear for a number of years, and I'm beginning to wonder if perhaps my irrational fear was not as irrational as I thought it was. To the point where I'm actually now pretty sure that my irrational fear was not as irrational as I thought it was.
Which is
So for a number of years, I had this like weird conspiracy theory fear that I had like autism or something, and like everybody around me knew it, but they weren't telling me. I never like looked up any information on this or how to like figure it out or like
I can send you information on that.
Well, actually, you don't have to, because that was pretty much what I did on Tuesday. Um, was it Tuesday? Tuesday or Wednesday? I think it was Wednesday. I was just like, and like for a couple years, it's like clearly I'm just being ridiculous. And then I actually started to look it up and like, okay, and there's this guy, I forget what his YouTube channel was, but he's like, oh yeah, so I had, speaking as him, he says I had late adult diagnosed autism, and I'm like, okay,
Kyle?
what?
Kyle?
Kyle?
Yeah, from he used to be on Nerdist, but now he has his own channel.
Like the channel that I found was all about autism.
Oh,
Like,
this is just a science dude that does like can Link really walk underwater with his lead boots?
yeah, that's not how I saw it. That's not what I found. Let me see if I can find history. Which of the many, 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 many YouTube videos? uh, what's this guy's name? Not really all that important, but oh, here we go. Asperger's from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had this series a couple years ago all about how to figure out if you have and Asperger's is autism, but it's like a very, very mild form of it.
I know what Asperger's.
Yeah. Well, for the viewers who don't, hey Sass, in
Sass can look it up.
in case you don't, in case you don't know, and he's telling, and he's listing off like all these like lived experiences of how to be like maybe you do, and I'm like, and he lists off 7 of them, and I'm like, yeah, I identify with all 7 of those. Like a lot. Has my irrational fear actually been like rational? That doesn't make any sense. Like, I have weird thoughts all the time. I should never actually have a cogent thought to follow through on and be like, yes, this is exactly what's happening. And then he linked to something called the autism quotient test. And if you score a 32 on it, you're 80%. It's very good at telling people that you do. It's not so good at telling people that you don't. If you score like 32 out of 40 points on this thing, 80% of the people who score that have autism. I scored a 30. And I'm like, that's not a concrete number to be able to just be like, yeah, this is the thing.
I've been talking to my therapist about the possibility of that for me, as well as ADD, and so she sent me the link that I just sent you, as well as one for ADHD, which ADD and ADHD is pretty much the same thing, except ADHD has the hyperactive side. Let me pull the let's see, it has the inattention side and then the hyperactivity and impulsivity side. And so I identify with all of the inattentive sides, but only one of the hyperactivity and impulsivity sides.
Right.
And so fairly certain I have ADD. I haven't been properly diagnosed, but I feel like at this stage of the game, when I've pretty much got my life together, there's really no point in getting properly diagnosed because it's not really affecting my day-to-day too terribly.
Well, and that's
I've dealt with it my whole life, and so I've figured out how to deal with it on my own.
Precisely. Well, here's kind of the point that I kind of came to before I started investigating things. I've gotten to this point, and it has, to the best of my knowledge, not significantly affected my life, except perhaps for the part where I'm making very inappropriate jokes, and I just think they're funny, and everyone else is like, "How could you possibly say something like that? It's so offensive." So maybe some social cues I'm missing somewhere along the way.
Maybe a few.
But the only practical thing I could find that would be perhaps beneficial from at least having some. I don't want an official diagnosis because whatever level I may or may not have, if I have it, is so infinitesimally minor, it's not really consideration. But what it might be a consideration for is like in terms of like new relationships, something that I can personally be cognizant of so that I can try and tailor my behavior in such a way as to not negatively impact other people. That seems fair, in my opinion. But like even the thing that you just sent me, persistent deficits in social communication, social interaction across multiple contexts, as manifested by the following: currently or by history. Examples are illustrative, not exhaustive. See text. And the first thing that they have listed here is deficits in social emotional reciprocity, ranging, for example, from abnormal social approach and failure of normal back and forth conversation to reduced sharing of interest, emotions, or affect, to failure to initiate or respond to social interactions. There are certain points where it's just like, I don't know how to continue with a conversation.
Yeah,
and I have no interest at that point in continuing the conversation.
Me too. Me too. It's like, I don't know what to do with the information you've given me, so I'm just going to sit here until you give me new information or until you get tired of me just sitting here and go away.
Like,
I do that on a day. I was doing that to Brooke earlier, and she was like, okay, I guess I'll just sit here then.
Well, so years ago, I had someone tell me that I was such a great listener. And I'm like...
Side note,
yes, sir?
For a second. Because you don't have ADD and I do, and I'll forget to say this.
Okay.
When I was reading this for the first time, I just want you to know that my dyslexia kicked in real hard, and I was trying to figure out for the life of me why autistic people were so raging. Why are they so angry all the time?
You mean for ranging as opposed to raging? Okay, gotcha.
Yep, I read ranging as raging,
Well, they're
and I was
fresh.
like, I'm not mad and frustrated all the time.
They're just well, they are just frustrated. They don't understand, so they're getting upset. Darn it! I don't understand what you want. What do you want from me? Just throw something across the room.
Okay, carry on.
Um. But yeah, I was told years ago that I was such a great listener, and it was so nice to just be able to talk to me and not have to have like any sort of impact, or like not impact, but like input coming back at them. And I'm like, just didn't know what to say.
Yeah. It's like I tell people I'm a great listener. That's just because I don't have a response for you.
Like someone's telling me like,
It's like I have things I could probably say, but they probably wouldn't help, and
Yeah.
they might actually get you to talk to me longer. So I'll just stay quiet.
Yeah. I've had like people tell me all about this long list of issues that they're having that I don't care about. Like I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it's terrible for you. What do you want from me? I can't fix that. I can't go back 30 years and fix the problem that you started that you're now paying the price for. I can't do that. And I'm not even going to try. Oh, you're such a great listener. I'm just keeping my mouth shut because the only thing I'm going to tell you is that you screwed up and you don't want to hear that. Deficits in nonverbal communicative behaviors used for social interaction and ranging, not raging, but ranging, for example, from poorly integrated verbal and nonverbal communication to abnormalities in eye contact and body language, or deficits in understanding and use of gestures, to a total lack of facial expressions and nonverbal communication. That one also.
Yeah, I often sit there with a blank stare as people talk to me.
I kind of do this the other way because I'm trying to make up for perceived deficits on my part, like things I've noticed. Like, man, I don't know if I'm really interacting with this person enough.
Oh, I don't give a crap.
Well,
Like,
so
to the point where my mother constantly asks me if I'm ever happy. It's like, yeah, I'm happy right now. Why do you ask?
Well, so
Maybe you should tell your face. My face is in a neutral state right now. To express otherwise would be
next time she does that, you know what you do? Get on your phone, open up the camera front facing, and say, "Face, I am happy," and put it back down.
Maybe this is why we're friends. We're both autistic and love it.
I mean, I was also thinking that in terms of you and your great, that might explain it. That might explain why you have such a history with people who have autism or things like that. It's because birds of a feather flock together. And here I am.
That's fair.
Oh. But anyway, so I try to make up for perceived lacking on my part. So I've like sometimes I will like death stare somebody.
Goodness. I'm currently thinking of all of my previous best friends. And how autistic they are.
Well, like so like when I have two modes of communication. One, I'm doing something else and you're there and I'm paying attention to what you're saying, but I'm not hardly looking at you at all. Unless it's to like check and see if you might be wrapping up soon kind of thing. And the other side is like, I have given you my 100% complete and total focus. I'm staring into your soul kind of thing. And like that one is very conscious because I'm trying, like, I want you to feel like I am making you a priority. And so I've watched videos on like how to communicate better, how to have good body language, how to do all these sort of things.
Because of my I have a horrible combination because my ADD will not let me sit there and stare somebody in the face, giving them my 100% attention. Because as soon as I try to do that,
right,
my brain starts thinking of other things, and I like literally if I want to pay attention to somebody 3 or 4 times, I have to ask them to repeat things. And then they'll try to explain it to me differently, and I'm like, no. I just need you to say it again because my brain did not process that you were talking.
Right. I don't mean like I actually am giving them
Which
like
happens with us a lot. If you go back and listen to our podcast, I'm like, wait, say that again?
yeah. Well, now that I know, I'll try and repeat exactly what I say. But sometimes what happens with me is I think of a better way to say it. That happens too. But even when I am doing like the death stare focus, it's not that I actually am death stare focused on them. It's just that I am presenting myself to do that so that they feel important. I am also
Yeah.
thinking of something like I'm processing their information and like only giving like surface level acknowledgement to what they're actually saying. I'm just like, okay, how do I either apply or get rid of this person? Apply this information
Like
or find a way to get out of this conversation.
last week when Brokebutt and I went went hiking.
Yeah.
Um, she was telling me a story, and halfway through her story, I said, like I picked up the beginning and the end, and I picked up the middle, and I said, like I was like, so what did you do with that?
Mm-hmm.
And she tried to explain it to me in a different way, and I was like, okay, now I understand. And she was like, I'm sorry, I just didn't know how to explain it the first time. And I was like, no, it wasn't your explanation. It was that I wasn't listening the first time.
Yeah, I get that. I actually get
It's like
that a
I
lot.
wanted to be listening. I
Here's the
was trying to listen.
here's the
I
thing.
just am not capable.
Here's the thing. Some people, my grandfather called it sometimers. You know, like Alzheimer's, but he's like it's sometimers, where sometimes you're not actually listening to somebody, or you have selective hearing, or something to that effect.
Yeah, my
Because
parents always called it selective hearing.
there are some things where it's like there are not some things. There are some people who I have those issues with much more frequently than I have them with any other people. I don't know why. Like, I mean, okay, some
You
of
do
them I
know
know.
why, don't lie.
Yeah, some of them I know why. But I mean, yeah. But like finding that right balance of social interaction is something that I've spent an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out. Like, am I doing this right? Am I asking the right question? Am I That's one of the reasons why I think I have spent a lot of time developing how I sound, because I want to fit in, and in doing so I've in some cases, in some things, I've shot past the mark. Um, Not most things, but some things. Um, yeah, I get that complete and total lack of social awareness to the point where I've tried. Like I said, I basically overcorrected and I've made it a point of anxiety.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I don't know how to fix this problem.
That's why.
That's why what?
I'm going to die alone.
You're going to die alone?
Yeah, that's what I said. That's why I'm going to die alone.
But thou hast many options which I don't have. And you
I
don't
have
have to overcome my face.
I have to overcome my face. That's worse.
Hey, every single girl I've ever tried to start something with, as soon as they saw my face, that was the end.
Are you sure it's as soon as they saw your face or as soon as they talked to you in person?
In some cases, it was the same thing. So, in fairness, the first night that Brokebutt and I like turned on cameras and looked at each other, she looked at me like that night. That was the first time she told me things weren't going to happen. I should have believed her, but I didn't. In fairness, I just didn't believe her.
Trust me, it has nothing to do with your face.
Hey, I'm just saying there's a very strong correlation, and that goes back several years. Like,
see, I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Brokebutt today. I think you are confusing correlation
with causality,
with coincidence.
No, coincidence is not related to that at all.
Oh, it very much is.
So correlation and coincidence are really synonyms of each other. They mean the same, functionally the same thing. Like, this happened and this happened at the same time. There's either a correlation or, hey, it was a coincidence that this happened. Causality says that because this happened, this was the result. Hello?
Yes, but correlation requires a dependent variable. one that is the same throughout. And no.
That would apply to my situation. Every time I see a girl, she looks at my
No.
face, and then we don't talk again.
That's not true. Because you've told me stories of girls that want to date you, and they've seen your face. You just don't want to date them.
That is changing the variables as well. I said every girl
That's not changing the main variable, though.
Actually,
the variable of them having seen your face.
No, the main variable is the girls that I have pursued.
I think we're arguing semantics.
My face is the universal constant here. The variable is the girls.
Oh my goodness.
Yay.
Oh yay.
Just got my Monday schedule.
Gotta work another 12 hours?
Yep. Gonna be a good one.
How are you liking this job?
It's really not bad. I'm just not a really big fan of working 12 hours.
Me either.
But I will say this: I've dropped 15 pounds in the last 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
At least.
That'll happen.
And I like, you know.
I mean, you literally work at a gym. Well, not literally.
Functionally, I work at a gym.
You functionally work at a gym.
Mm-hmm. Let's keep working through this list. I'm having fun with this list.
Oh, yeah. And actually, you reading over it is helping me comprehend it better.
Mm-hmm. See, there we go.
Because my reading comprehension is crap.
So, deficits in developing, maintaining, and understanding relationships, ranging, for example, from difficulties.
Thank you for pointing that out every time.
Trying to help.
I appreciate you.
Ranging from difficulties adjusting behavior to suit various social contexts, to difficulties in sharing imaginative play, or in making friends, to absence of interest in peers. Yes. Maybe not so much the imaginative play. Like, I have a very vivid imagination. So vivid I can't tell most people. That goes through my head. But that's a whole other story.
See, I looked at this one a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, I can do imaginative play, but can I do cooperative imaginative play? That's a little bit more iffy.
Well, that's why the key word there is difficulties in sharing imaginative play.
Mm-hmm.
So I can have a shared experience with people, like, theater of the mind. However, if I'm just left to my own devices and I come up with the entire thing entirely on my own, that's where you end up with...
You're a cannibal.
That's where you end up with a cleric who's a cannibal, yes. And then I'm like, here, let's throw this in. And everyone's like, he did what? This is a redeeming character, maybe? We'll find out. I don't know. I just thought this would be fun. Why I thought cannibalism would be fun, I don't know. But in particular, it says, from difficulties adjusting behavior to suit various social context. This is something that I have had issues with. I think the first time I recognized it when I was like 10. But Masters, when you walk with a group of people, how do you adjust yourself to the group?
What do you mean?
Has it ever been like a point of consideration for you? Should I walk towards the front of the group? Should I walk to the back of the group? Should I walk in the middle of the group? Have a left side, right side? Has that ever been like a topic of thought to you, to be like, we are walking to a destination as this group of people. Where do I fit into this little caravan?
No, I just go. I often find myself alone because I'm either walking a lot faster than the group because I'm ready to get there, or I'm walking a lot slower than the group because I don't care.
Uh-huh.
But I never adjust the way I do things when I'm in a group.
Well, I've when I was 10 years old, my family went for the first time to Cedar Point, which is a roller coaster park in Ohio. And the entire time we're there, I was paranoid the whole day not to get too far ahead, not to fall behind, not to walk to the side, but to like try and find this equidistant, because I was very excited. I wanted to get to the next thing as fast as possible, and everyone else was kind of slowing me down to my youthful zeal. But I was just petrified to the idea that, like, I might lose them somehow. And so I spent half the day just trying to make sure I wasn't, too far ahead or too far behind or just wandering off doing my own thing.
Nah, I just wander off, do my own thing.
Like that has been a consistent, like that has persisted far beyond that, to the point now where it's like if I'm walking with a group of people, well, actually, thank God I went to South Africa, because South Africa helped me figure out my overall plan for walking interactions. That really helped me out. If there's like one person I'm walking with that person. That's not an issue. But like as soon as you add a third person into that equation, major issues. Am I walking ahead? I'm walking behind. Are we taking too much room? We're blocking the path. It's all kinds of just weird considerations that are really unhelpful.
I do think about that all the time.
Yeah.
Like if we're in a grocery store, and we're walking down an aisle and I see people coming, and I want to shove everybody I'm with to one side, going, okay, we need to be all on this side so that they can get by.
Yeah. Like
I do that all the time. Yeah.
That is also a part of it. Where was I going with this?
Like to the point that it gives me anxiety.
Yeah. I already have the anxiety. How I have sort of solved it for traveling in larger groups. When I was in South Africa, they told me they were teaching me about rhinoceri, because we were in a wild game park, and they were telling us the two major delineations are white rhinos and black rhinos, and they're not actually significantly different in color. I mean, black rhinos are darker, but that's not really the point. There's a lot of behavioral things that the different rhinoceroses do, which are much more indicative, like how they carry their head, their posture, things like that. And the one thing that really stuck out to me is how they interact with walking in a group. If it is a white rhino, they walk to the front of the group to kind of spot predators and things like that. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And if they're a black rhino, they walk behind their young to basically make sure that their young aren't getting out of line.
I just thought of a really inappropriate joke.
The joke that you just thought of, I'm pretty sure, was also made at the time by the tour guide who was telling us. He said that
don't know about that.
He said that this delineation also applies to people.
Having that joke in my head made me completely miss the second part of that. So how do black rhinos carry themselves?
The black rhinos, well, they're posturally, they keep their head up higher. But they also make sure that their young walk in front of them so that they can keep an eye on their kids and make sure the kids aren't getting into trouble, as opposed to trying to keep an eye out for predators coming to attack the family unit. The black rhinos send the kids out front and make sure that like they aren't being the problem. And so
gotcha.
When I heard that, I'm like, so if I want to make sure I'm not doing something that's outside of the social context of the group, all I have to do is walk behind them and then match what they do. And that solved all my issues. Well, it didn't solve my issues, but it gave me an easy thing to fall back on, to be like, okay, if I'm having an issue, here's how I fix it. I applied a logical solution to what most people just kind of figure out emotionally, or something to that effect. I don't know how they do it. I don't have those emotions. They're just like, oh, it's a social interaction. You just do. And I'm like, no, you don't just do. How does you do? Please tell me. And then of course we were also talking a little bit before about absence of interest in peers, and how we typically just like, I don't care.
Yeah. So, what I thought in my life made me a sociopath actually turns out just to be autism.
I am right there with you right now. I'm like, man, that on the one hand, man, I guess there's a friend of mine who he and I used to joke a couple years ago after I kind of got past my irrational, but maybe now rational anxiety about being autistic and then everyone knowing and then not telling me. Which, after you get past conspiracy theories, it's a lot easier to try and actually work on stuff. But he and I used to have a joke like, oh, well, I guess there's a reason that autism is on a spectrum. He and I talking about he and I, and our similarities in processing certain things. And I'm like, yeah, this tells me that perhaps I'm not quite the sociopath I think I am. I mean, there's definitely a lot of overlap. but maybe rather than just being messed up in the head, I am actually just messed up in the head, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Masters, the thing you sent me, basically yes. That was basically the joke. That was yeah. We're good.
Nope, that thought's gone forever.
Okay, sorry. We can move on to the next section here because there's more than one section.
Yeah.
Restricted repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, or activities as manifested by at least two of the following, currently or by history. Examples are illustrative, not exhaustive, see text, yada yada. Stereotyped or repetitive motor movements, use of objects or speech. Yes.
Wait, what?
Stereotyped or repetitive motor movements, use of objects or speech. Examples would be...
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah, simple motor stereotypes, lining up toys or flipping objects. Echolalia, which I'm not familiar with, or idiosyncratic phrases. There is a program that I watched when I was much younger called Boston Legal, and there's a man on there who had Asperger's, or he's a man who's playing a man who had Asperger's, and one of his things that was a sort of a calming thing to him was that he would just pop. Not say pop, but just like anytime that he was feeling just messed up.
I'm doing it, but my filter's filtering it out.
Oh, what are you doing?
No, popping.
Oh. I mean,
I tend to do this. That's not coming through, is it?
Not at all.
Nope, my filter's too good.
Yep. Why don't you describe it to us?
Like letting the air out of a balloon. Like where you stretch the band so it makes a high-pitched squeal.
Okay.
Yeah. Not loose to where it farts, but like just a high-pitched,
I was going to say, as soon as you said that, I'm like, okay, so Master's idiosyncratic thing is that he farts. Gotcha.
But I also fiddle with things in my hand all the time.
So I do like the hand fiddling thing. I crack my neck a lot.
I used to crack my knuckles all the time.
I
used to.
Go ahead.
Oh, my filter's too good.
I heard it.
Yes, because I was making noise in the background as well.
But
yeah, I can repeatedly crack my knuckles and my wrist.
Yep.
My filter's too good.
Say, I can do it. So I can crack my knuckles, I can crack my wrists, I can crack my toes, I can crack my knee, I can like all kinds of stuff. But like the one that like really gets me over and over and over again is my neck, like all the time, to the point that people who have only known me like a couple of weeks are like, "Why do you crack your neck all the time?" And I'm like, "Oh well, it just feels better after I do it. And I never put any more thought into it than that. And they're like, oh yeah, it is just like a calming thing that you do over and over and over again. I'm like, wait a second. And then they start talking about sort of like verbal things that people will do, which are comforting. And I remember the conversation that I had years ago with one of the friends that I did my first podcast with. And he's like, why do you sing all the time? Because we were like playing Monster Hunter or whatever. And I'd just be like sitting there humming or singing or whatever to myself. And I'm like, I never really thought about it, but I guess it just is like a calming, comforting thing. I like the sound that my voice makes. And I like
the sound of my own voice.
I do like the sound of my own voice. And I like the reverberation, like the feeling of reverberation that it gives me when I make those sounds. There's a sort of cathartic effect to it that when I am speaking, there's vibrations and stuff that are generated, and those vibrations to me feel good on the inside, and so I do it. So I'm like, yeah, that also fits. Insistence on sameness, inflexible adherence to routines or ritualized patterns of verbal or nonverbal behavior. Extreme distress at small changes, difficulties with transitions, rigid thinking patterns, greeting rituals, needing to take some root or eat some same food every day. I got like half of those. So extreme distress at small changes is a big one.
That used to be a big one for me. So much so that it really stressed me out at my current job.
Mm-hmm.
But just being overexposed to it has dulled my senses for it. But used to, like when I was younger, would drive me crazy. And the biggest part of it was that my mother was the one causing the issue.
I know that feeling.
Like, I couldn't even get settled in my room before she was calling me back downstairs.
Yes.
I
know
the time.
That. So I've made jokes about it before, about how frustrating it is, like when I'm in my room and I'm doing my thing, and then like someone just barges in. And like to the point where my family bought a do not disturb sign to put on my door, and then they came in anyway, which made it worse. Because like, you're gonna buy me the thing. Don't do that. But like, it wasn't so much that I had a problem with my family or that what I was doing was in any way, shape, or form was all that important. It was simply the interruption. Like in my mind, I had apportioned time to do this thing, and whatever they had on their plate was not it. And so they, like to this day, they still like, why were you snapping at us whenever we were just coming to talk to you? And I'm like, I don't know why, but it just frustrated me when you would do that. I potentially have a reason why that was such a big deal. Like, it's such a small thing. It should not be in any way, shape, or form. And I cognizantly understand that it should not be an issue when you're doing something and someone comes in, like, hey, can you ask this question? Can you do this? Okay, yep, here's the answer. It's fine. It's over. It's done with it. Move on with life. But for whatever reason, like, they'd come in, I'm just like, and I was blaming it on just being an introvert and being like, I just need time to decompress, need time to do this. But which, I mean, could also be part of it. But sitting there, I'm like, no, it really is just what I'm doing, while probably not being all that important, is just not what you have on your agenda. And I don't have time for what's on your agenda. This is what I'm doing right now. And I have no room in my mental faculties or my limited emotional breadth for whatever it is that you're trying to introduce here. Difficulties with transitions, I know that very well. Yeah. I don't like swapping from one thing to the next. I like to just do something and then get it done. That's one of the reasons why I actually kind of like working at the glass factory. I do one thing all day.
Yeah.
And
that's what I really liked about working at McDonald's. And sadly, I've actually been contemplating quitting my job and going just to work at McDonald's. For one, I could potentially make more money working at McDonald's right now. But for another, I just really enjoyed the fact that, oh, I go in, I'm on the grill. Okay, all I'm doing all day is cooking on the grill.
Mm-hmm.
It's all I have to do. It's all I have to worry about.
Yep.
It's not stressful. It's actually really relaxing. I just got to go in there and do it.
Yep.
And then when I'm done, I leave and come back tomorrow.
I understand. I wouldn't do it at McDonald's, but I understand that point of view entirely. I really like doing only one thing, which is why I think working at the law firm was getting to be such a stressful environment for me, because every 3 weeks they come and say, well, we need you to start doing this too. Well, we need you to start doing this too. Oh, you're already helping IT and doing what we hired you to do and doing this and doing that. We also need to have you start doing something for accounting too. And I'm like, I'm not being paid for this, which is a whole other thing. But like, that's a very legitimate excuse. But like, just as a personal thing, like, I don't want to do all this extra stuff. I'm here to do this job, and what you're asking me to do is not that. And you're asking me to take on a bunch of extra responsibility and then to transition multiple times throughout my day to doing all these different things that I don't want to and am probably not qualified for. And I definitely don't feel qualified for. So, yeah. Greeting rituals, if that applies to like saying goodbye, I probably have that. Although that might just be a Midwest thing, not actually autism.
Yeah, I think that's just a Midwestern thing.
I don't have I don't have a problem with needing to take the same route or eat the same food every day.
Yeah. So when I was discussing this with my therapist, I did not think about this, but when I was a kid, like before my sister was born, I literally ate the same thing every single day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Which was?
Well, it changed up a couple of times. But at one point it was Hardee's gravy and biscuits.
Okay.
My parents would go to Hardee's every morning and buy me 3, one for lunch, one for breakfast, and one for dinner.
Okay.
And that's what I ate every single day. Then it got to where it was grilled cheeses. And so they would make me grilled cheeses for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. I think at one point it was mayonnaise sandwiches.
That's weird.
Literally just bread and mayonnaise.
I didn't need any clarification. I got the point.
There were probably, I think there might have been a couple other things that my mother could tell you, but yeah, I didn't think about that when talking to my therapist about this. Like, cause like I said, when I read over this first time, my reading comprehension skills are crap. And so I didn't think about these things. And so when we talked about, whether or not I, thought I, identified with any of this for the autism, I was like, there was a few things, but not really. But now that we're going through it like this, every single one of them.
You know what you should do, Masters? This is a terrible idea. When we finish this, you should just send her the podcast.
I actually have thought about that, but I don't want to scar her. I don't want her to leave me.
Well, you just send her like a timestamp and be like, so here's where we start talking about our autistic experiences. This could be a really interesting case study for like one guy who self-diagnosed and then kind of helped bring things out. Because, I'd be kind of interested to hear what she would have to say about that. Although she might charge for listening to it. I would. When I was younger, I also had like the same food thing. I was told like I only ate like grilled cheese and fried chicken, and that was about it. Up until
I could eat fried chicken every single day of my life now.
I mean,
but I don't, because I don't want to order. Because right now I'm ordering things through Walmart delivery.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be judged, so I don't order the same thing. I order a variety of things so that I'm not judged by the delivery person. Like, why are they buying just 15 pounds of chicken?
Now, see, here's the thing. That is probably just your social anxiety based upon your not wanting to be perceived differently by the people.
Oh, that's 100% what that is.
No,
I'm aware.
Normal folks probably wouldn't have that issue.
I am fully aware that that is a social anxiety issue that I have.
Like... So I think this is, all the many objections to it that have been brought forward, noted, and cataloged. I'm aware of them. But that might be one of the reasons why I am so okay with eating literally the same dish for a week. Because it doesn't matter. Like, I make something that I like, and I'm good with it. And then I'm just like, I'm just going to eat this until it's gone.
When I was living in the dorms, I was telling some, because Tuesday nights, the thing that I'm going to is a young adults class.
Uh-huh.
And right now we're talking about money.
They still let you come?
And yeah, I know, right? Like I was telling my therapist, I was like, I feel weird going to a young adults class because I am not a young adult. I literally just go because my mentor is the teacher of it, and also there are cute girls.
I say my previous church kicked me out of the young adults thing at 21 because they tried to make me one of the teachers for it, and then they're like, "Yeah, that ain't working out either." So just don't come.
No, not college and career.
No, like
young adults.
I understand.
Because I was kicked out of college and career at the age of 23.
No, 21. They kicked me out of everything youth related.
Yeah. Well, that's because it's you.
Well, no, they kicked out like 2 other people too. But
I was being funny. Don't ruin my joke.
Sorry.
Sorry. What was I talking about?
You were talking about going to the young adults class because there's cute girls.
Yeah. So, what they're teaching about right now is money. And so Tuesday they were talking about money struggles. And so we had every Tuesday they have a meal that we eat. And so like the first night I went, I don't remember what they had. Oh, they had chicken nuggets from Chick-fil-A. And then but I got there late, and so I didn't get any of that goodness.
Solid choice in your stupid.
I was actually picking up their daughter from her softball game.
And anyways, you're doing them a favor, and they can't save you a couple of chicken nuggets. What's wrong with these people?
I know, right? And so the second night I came, we had steak dinners.
Ooh.
From Stakeout. It tasted like a Salisbury steak, but it was an actual steak instead of ground beef.
Is that actually taste or is that texture?
That's taste.
Okay.
No, the texture was of steak.
Okay.
But it tasted like Salisbury steak.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever eaten Stakeout, but it's basically fast food for steak. And those two words just don't go together.
No, they don't.
Anyways, so this last Tuesday, we had struggle meals. So basically they went and spent $20 on food for 30 people. And that's what we ate. So we ate like bologna sandwiches and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and ramen noodles and stuff like that. And so I was telling them that my struggle meal when I was in college was pizza. And they were like, pizza's not a struggle meal. I was like, it was the way I did it. Because I would literally go to Domino's and they have their $5.99 pizza deals.
Uh-huh.
I would get 3 pizzas, all exactly the same. I would bring them back to my dorm room, section them off, 2 pizzas or 2 slices per gallon-sized bag, throw them in the freezer, and that's what I ate on for the week.
And so I actually did that. not with Pizza Hut, but I did. I got a
Domino's, not Pizza Hut. Pizza's disgusting.
Okay. Well, I got a coupon for Hungry Howie's that got me 2 larges and a cheese bread, and that's what I ate.
Oh God, you were living the good life.
That's what I ate all week long for 2 weeks ago. And there's a fairly good possibility that's also what I'm going to eat all week long next week too. Yeah.
I have absolutely no qualms about eating the same thing every single day.
Yeah. In fact, to me, it seems dramatically more efficient to do that as opposed to spending 30 minutes to an hour and a half every day cooking a different meal that you're going to eat once.
And I really just can't wait for the day where they give me a pill to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like, here, just eat this and it's all your daily nutrients. You don't have to worry about anything but drinking water. And I'll be like, heck yes, please sign me up for that.
Wait, what?
I hate eating. I hate food. If I could get away
I say I
with
bet
not
you.
having
I
to
don't
eat.
believe you. I'm, I'm sorry. That was an easy joke.
It was an easy joke. There are some foods that I do enjoy eating.
Yes.
But that requires me to either A, cook it, or B, go somewhere where it's cooked for me. And I would just rather not have to deal with that and just not eat. I would much rather never eat again than to eat my favorite foods all the time. If I had the choice between the two, I would absolutely choose to never eat again.
I mean, so here's the thing. We talked about this for other reasons. I hope I really hope we didn't talk about this on the podcast, but I'm going to bring it up, and basically we are now. But I do have a little bit of an oral fixation, and so I like the idea of I like the sensory input of eating food.
Huh?
So I don't know if I would be down for just like not ever eating.
Yeah. I'm perfectly down for never eating food again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yep.
Fun stuff.
So next.
Okay. Let's see.
Highly restricted. Number 3.
Okay, highly restricted.
Under B.
Yes. Yeah, I was scrolling around a little bit. Highly restricted, fixated interests that are abnormal in intensity or focus. Well, that's clearly not me.
Are you being serious right now?
No, I'm not being serious at all.
Okay. I was about to say. The fact that you could pull a planet out of your butt.
Like, no, I didn't just pull a planet out of my butt. I pulled where it was on the galactic map. Fake galactic map. I'm like, oh yeah, it's in the northeast section of the galactic maps right here. I'm like, why do I know that?
And mine is more of a, it changes. Like I don't fixate on one thing. Like at the beginning of last year, it was D&D. As you well know.
Yep.
And I've kind of teetered away from that. I mean, I still know all the things that I learned.
Yeah. But it's almost like it's almost like, oh yeah, I did that. And now I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. But like I change up. Like for a very, very, very long time, it was the Myers-Briggs thing.
Yep.
And so like I could go around and spend 15 minutes with a person and be like, oh, if you took the test, this is what you would get. And then they would go take the test and that's what they would get.
Yeah.
Like, and I did genealogy for a long time.
Yep.
When I was learning, trying to get my family's genealogy together. So I definitely hyperfixate on small abnormal interests
and I would like
from time to time.
And I would like to go perfectly on the record here that I have no strong attachment to nor preoccupation with any unusual objects.
What?
Well, that's part of the qualifier there. It says highly restricted, fixated interests that are abnormal in intensity or focus, e.g., strong attachment to or preoccupation with unusual objects. Nothing at all. Doesn't apply to me in the slightest.
My goodness. Yeah, mine would be computers on that then, I guess. Like I argued, oh my goodness, since we're here, okay. I argued with I did it on Twitter. I can literally just go back and read what I wrote.
Dear.
Okay. Oh, let me go back and make it bigger because this is scrolling upwards. So All right. Okay. So I contacted Comcast yesterday, Thursday.
Yes.
Because I got home and my internet speeds were not well, okay, first of all, I got home and I had a new toy to play with. Which was I bought a surge protector for my Ethernet and my um, coaxial cable
Yep.
because Comcast had an issue in my area that fried my modem. They won't fess up. They're like literally in this conversation. The guy was like, "That doesn't happen." It's like, well, it freaking did.
Yeah.
It's like it's not a coincidence that there was an outage in my area and my modem got fried, and the only possible way it could have gotten fried is through the coax cable. That you guys are the ones that are in charge of that.
Right.
Anyways, that little rant over. So I got home and I was hooking this up, and everything came back up, but the internet was being really weird. So I did a speed test, and I wasn't getting what I was supposed to be getting.
Yeah.
And then I looked up and learned that my surge protector that I bought on the Ethernet side, it only goes to 100 megs, and I pay for 500 meg internet. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll just not use the Ethernet part of the surge protector. It should be fine just with the coax surge protector.
Right.
So I hooked that up, and so I did another speed test, and it went from 100 megs up to 200 megs. And I was like, that's weird. Why am I only getting 200 megs? And then I did it over Wi-Fi on my phone, and I was getting my 400 or my 500.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? This doesn't make any sense. And so I got on here. And it says, thank you for sending me a DM. I understand you're experiencing an issue with your new modem. I know how frustrating that can be, and assure you that I'm here to help troubleshoot and work towards a resolution with you today. Is the power light on the modem solid, blinking, or off? And I said, I was trying to use the chat on the website, and it sent my modem into a restart. And it's been restarting for 25 minutes now. I said, the power light is solid, the download light is solid, and occasionally goes from green to blue. It's supposed to be on blue all the time.
Yeah.
And I said, the upload is a solid green, and the internet light is blinking. I've unplugged it and waited a minute and then plugged it back in, and that didn't fix the issue. My modem and router were fried Sunday when some sort of outage occurred in my area. I was finally able to get an internet again on Monday afternoon with the new modem, and then today it's giving me slow speed, so I am trying to get that looked at, and now it's on an endless reboot loop. Not to mention, the internet has been randomly dropping every 10 minutes all week. And they said, thank you for the updated details on your modem and status, but an interruption would not cause your system to fry. May I ask you if you have a third-party router connected to your modem? And I said, I never said it was an interruption. There was some sort of power surge through the coax cable. Regardless, setting that aside for now, I'm working on this issue. Yes. I said, I do have a third-party router, but that's not the issue. The modem is. The router is not the issue. The modem is stuck in a reset loop, and I cannot get it to stop. I have unplugged it, and I am resetting it again. I am well aware of what I'm doing. If it were an issue on my end, I would have it fixed already. Stop patronizing me. And I said, okay, I'm not sure what you did or anything. If anything, this was 7 minutes later. Not sure if you did anything, but my modem is now working properly. I have internet again, but my speeds are still getting reduced. And they came on and said, I can see that your modem is stuck in a reset loop. Let me see if I can fix that for you. And I was like, no, it stopped now. Don't touch anything. And by that time, it was too late. They had already set it on a restart. Luckily, it didn't get stuck in a loop this time. And so I sat here with him for another 2 hours and could not get my speeds to work properly. Like I said, over Wi-Fi, I was getting my normal speeds, but on wired connection, I was not getting it. So I replaced all of the cables. I plugged it directly into my modem, Still nothing. It was still the same.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, sitting here looking at the speed test, and I'm trying to use Xfinity's because, if you have a internet connection with a certain supplier, theirs is going to be biased towards their speeds. So if theirs is telling you that you're not getting the speeds you should be getting, something is up. So I was testing it, and on that website, it says, please make sure that you have no other systems running an internet, using the internet while performing this test for best results. So I was like, that's not going to cause any issues, but just to appease you, I shut everything off. All I had was one tab open with their speed test on it. And when I went to go do that, I noticed, hey, my VPN is on.
Mm-hmm.
So I turned off my VPN. Guess what kind of speeds I got after that?
All the speeds?
All the speeds. So at the end of this conversation, I'm like, okay, never mind. I'm a complete idiot. My VPN was on. I didn't realize it. Everything is working perfectly now. And they came back on. They were like, oh, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear it's working for you now. Like, they were like just totally nonchalant about my complete failure. And they said, is there anything else I can help you with today? I said, not unless you have a way to tell myself that the issue was a pepcake error 2 hours ago.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, it's fine. We all learn something new every day. Oh, so that was my experience on Thursday. I spent 2 hours messing with something that was my fault and telling them that I knew what I was doing.
I've had that happen before. Not about that. Because that was something that happened on Friday. Like, one of the benefits is that sometimes I just like don't know what to do, so I'll just ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some stuff, like most of the stuff at work is just like, hey, the big heavy piece of glass, you pick it up here and you put it down over there. Okay, done. Super easy, barely inconvenience, except for the fact it was really heavy. But there's a couple other things that need to get taken care of. And so I'm like, okay, well, if this situation happens, what do you do? And they're like, oh, well, yeah, that's a great question. And they explained it to me. And then there's like two other people who were standing next to me who've worked there for like 6 months. And like, we never thought to ask that question. We don't know how that works either. Thanks for asking that incredibly insightful question. I'm like, really? Nobody else asked the question. No, nobody thought to, I mean, whatever. But like I spent this whole week, I had a lot. This is one of the nice parts about only having like one thing to do and focus on. You have a lot of time to like think about other things.
Yep.
And so it's like I spent this whole week just being like, am I exhibiting signs of autism and yada yada, who to what's it's. Basically my conclusion is yes. But nobody, like, I'm assuming that still the vast majority of other people are normal, and none of the normal people figured this out. Like, you just ask the question. It's not that hard. Just ask the question. Yeah. That was long. That was a long one. That I think took like 3 rabbit trails.
Oh yeah. So this is going to be a good podcast. Rabbit trails.
Hyper or hypo reactivity to sensory input or unusual interest in sensory aspects of the environment. Apparent indifference to pain, temperature. That one just struck me because I often say I haven't been cold since I was 9.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I don't have an indifference to temperature because I love the cold. Like when I walk outside and shiver, it puts a smile on my face. Like if it is cold enough for me to feel cold, it makes me happy. And I hate being hot.
I'm right there with you.
However, pain, I am very indifferent to pain. Like I could be thrown off a building and could barely stand, and I'm just like, okay, who did that? It's like, you are literally mangled to the core. Yeah, so It's okay. I'll walk it off. Like, to the point that extreme pain causes me to break out into laughter.
So, the most intense pain I've ever felt in my entire life was when I had my first gout attack. It was like 3 days. We were trying to figure out what was wrong. They thought it was broken, then it wasn't broken. They're like, what's going on? We don't know. My foot was where I got the attack.
Yeah.
And like, that's some intense pain. I never want to feel that ever again. But I like that level of pain to me was like maybe like a 7 or an 8 because my scale,
my goodness,
like
yes,
is like messed up. They're like, well, what's it like? They're like, what's your pain index? I'm like, well, like this is probably the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. Like I would rather get punched in the balls than feel this anymore. But like this is probably like a 7. And they're like, what do you mean it's a 7? I'm like, well, to me, like 10 is passing out. I'm not close to passing out yet. I'm still having a conversation with you. I'm really tense right now. I'm trying not to move anything because it hurts. But like, oh, we can still have a conversation. And they're like, really?
Yeah.
Like,
so the worst pain I have ever felt.
Like I was making jokes.
Yeah. So the worst pain I have ever felt was when I was mowing, and I looked down and saw a wire sticking out from under the mower, and I thought I better grab that before I run it over and get it caught up in the blades.
Oh dear Lord!
So I reached over and grabbed it. Didn't turn off the mower.
Yep.
Then the blades grabbed it, and it ripped a chunk out of my fingers.
Yep.
That is the worst pain I've. Huh?
I just saw that whole thing happen before you described. Like as soon as you said the wire and you reached, I'm like, yep, I know exactly where this is going.
Yeah. So I that is the worst pain I've ever felt in my life, and I would describe it as about a 6 or a 7. It's like, yeah, it was excruciating. I'm never going to make that mistake again. But like, it's nowhere near as bad as I think that I could get before I call it a 10.
Yeah, like right. One of the issues that I'm still having with my new job is carrying heavy pieces of glass. My hands hurt all the time. It's what happens. You're carrying a 120-pound piece of glass, and you do that 60 times a day. Your hands really get a workout, and they hurt. I've been told that it hurts less eventually. And I'm like, okay, well, that's something to look forward to. But it's like, it's not stopping me. It's not slowing down. To me, like, the pain in my hands is just a frustration. I wish my hands worked better. Why don't my hands work better?
Exactly. So, like, I have been to a knee doctor before because I literally have a piece in my knee that literally pops out of place, and I have to push it back in.
Yeah, you told me
it's
about
like
this.
A little button. I went to the doctor about it, and he was sitting there playing with my knee, and he took my leg and twisted it.
Yeah.
And then sat it back down, and he goes, so there's nothing wrong with your knee. And I'm like, how can there be nothing wrong with my knee when there's a piece that literally pops out of place?
Yeah.
And he said, normally if I do that motion on somebody who has an issue with their knee, they're jumping off the table. And I'm like, well, it hurt, but like maybe a 4.
Yeah.
It's like the pain that I feel on a daily basis hurts more than what you just did.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not, I mean, what do you want from me?
I'm sorry I'm not reacting properly to your pain causing scenario.
Yeah. So yeah.
So this is another weird one about that. So you know how like if you maintain muscle strain for a long period of time, it starts to like really hurt because lactic acid builds up and it creates a burning sensation. when I was like 16 years old, I was like, for a little bit, I'm going to try and really focus in and get close to God. And for whatever reason, my mind came up with this idea that if I could just hold my hands up longer than anybody else, that was my path.
Okay.
And so, like, I was just standing there, and like, 5-10 minutes in, like, it hurts really bad. And I'm like, I don't care. So I'm not putting him down. I'm going to keep praying. I'm going to just keep my hands up, and like, it'd be up for like 45 minutes, and it's just like, it just burns, and like, it hurts. Like, I can't even hardly speak. It just burns. But I'm like, you know what? We're doing it. We're going to keep going. Yep.
Yeah. So I think you would have benefited from a lesson that my Sunday school teacher taught me.
Oh, there's so many lessons I've learned since then that have prevented that level of idiocy.
So she basically had everybody in the room stand up against the wall, and she was like, "Okay, you stick your leg out. You stand this way. You stand this way. You stand this way." And we stood there for about 10 minutes. And she was like, "Is everybody comfortable?" And we were like, "No, we're not comfortable. You have us standing in these really awkward positions." Yeah. And she was like, "Okay, then. If you're not comfortable doing this, that's not how you're supposed to worship. God, she's like, you need to find a way that is comfortable for you, and don't worry about what everybody else is doing. If you feel comfortable raising your hands, then raise your hands. If you feel comfortable just speaking to God in a quiet voice, do that. Whatever is comfortable to you, as long as you are worshiping God, then that's good." So yeah, you would have benefited from that lesson.
I will say this though, after a year doing that, it became a lot more comfortable for a lot longer period of time.
Sure it did. I'm sure it did.
No, there was a guy in the 60s and 70s that I was not familiar with back then, who really messed up a lot of evangelical prayer and worship norms, because the people back in those days were like, well, you got to get down on your knees, you got to do this and that and the other, and tarry until, and he's just like, well, I read the Bible, and that's not how any of this is supposed to work. It says, that they received the Holy Ghost for the first time when they were sitting. Why are we having them like kneel down in this weird contorted position, and like having to like bend their arch their back and lift up their hands, and don't put them down and do this, and like, it's like, this says that they were sitting, and hey, if you only kind of like half lift your hands, just like bend them up at the elbows, that's a lot more comfortable. People can do that for hours, no problem. And he just got very practical about it, and then he started getting like, thousands of people receiving the Holy Ghost, and people were very angry with him because he's just like calling them and all their bull crap, and he's like, I'm just reading the book, guys. You can argue with that. Now don't argue with me. But I do have the other side of this as well, where it's not just hypo, where I underreact to pain, but I also overreact to other stimuli like bright lights, loud noises.
Yeah, bright lights, loud noises.
Piercing noises are a big thing. Oh,
heat
is a thing. I try to just avoid heat so much that I don't ever have an opportunity to react to it.
Yeah.
Like, it's not my friend. I'm
going to enjoy coming to Michigan in the summer.
Not as much as you think you are.
Because you're gonna be like, oh my god, it's so hot, and I'm gonna be like, this is fall weather.
And actually, it'll be interesting. Depending on like what week it is and how things play out, could be a real experience there.
It's gonna be fun. Yeah. I'm excited about it.
Good. Adverse response to specific sounds or textures. Okay, some textures I'm not a big fan of. Like, actually, growing up when I was like a really picky eater, it had very little to do with flavor, and it had a lot to do with textures. A texture in my mouth, like the crunch of vegetables, was enough to trigger my gag reflex and just like spew everywhere.
Yeah, I can't. Like, I love green peppers and red pepper. I love bell peppers. But I cannot eat them if they have a crunch to them. If they have a crunch to it, nope, will not eat it.
Like, I trained myself out of that. I just ate them. Like, I'd cut them, I'd eat them, and I'd just like suffer through and hold it down. I did that for like several months. Not every day.
So on this, I have
repress that urge.
I have several things that I have done that with. Texture wise, like hand texture.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like I don't like eating anyways, so why would I waste my time eating things that I don't like the texture of just to get used to it? So I've never done that with food. But like there are certain clothes textures that I can't handle.
Understand that
like
too.
I put it on my body and immediately have to take it off.
Yeah.
Like I can walk into Walmart or wherever to buy clothes and feel the shirt and go, nope, not putting that on my body.
I've done that several times. Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. Do you have the sameness of texture thing?
What do you mean?
Where like if you touch something with one hand, you have to touch it with the other?
No.
Okay.
No.
Because I have
do
that.
Like, oh yes, I remember. I was about to say I have a friend that has that, but it's you. You're the friend. I remember you talking about that at Disney World, where I would like touch you on one side, you'd be like, okay, now you've got to touch me on the other. That was the weirdest thing for me.
and we're just, like, we're 30. You're 31. We're just now figuring this out. Boy, are we stupid.
Oh my goodness!
Like the signs.
Well, to be fair, we were born in the 90s,
right?
So, like, if we had been born just a few years later,
oh yeah,
they would have picked up on this a long time ago.
Of course, but at the same time, I'm really glad that they didn't, because most of the treatments and stuff that I'm seeing out here for like autism are terrifying. They're like medieval kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I don't want to have anything to do with this, guys. I don't want.
What are you looking at?
Well, I mean, not necessarily. Okay. For a brief period, it was medieval. Now it's gone completely the other way, where there's accommodation to such a level that they train helplessness into otherwise largely or mostly or entirely functional people.
Okay, I don't know what kind of stuff they're doing up there in Michigan, but you guys should start sending them down here to Alabama where we know how to treat people.
So,
because our whole thing, like I know several kids that are autistic, and Brooke is an occupational therapist. That's literally what she does.
Yeah,
and their whole thing is teaching kids that have those things how to be more independent, not to be able to rely on other people.
Yeah. So much of the system up here is now all based around not empowerment but permissiveness. How can we make this easier for you? How can we dumb this down? How can we find a way to make it so you don't actually have to deal with this thing that's difficult for you? Avoidance rather than conquering.
Yeah, no, that's not how we roll down here in Alabama.
Yeah. I'm not saying that's how that is with everybody, and a lot of that is much more or not that it is more family based, but it can be overcome through family based initiatives. One of my friends up here, he was born with cerebral palsy, so he's quadriplegic. He has autism. He's a bunch of other things that are just issues he's had his whole life. But his family has never, or like in particular his mother, has never allowed him to slack off, has never allowed him to just accept life as it is. She's always pushed him. She's always supported him. She's always been his number one cheerleader. And he went from someone who they're like, we can't believe this kid was born alive, to we don't think he's going to make it 10 days, to extending out that we can't believe he's going to make it until, he's going to die by the ages 10, 12, 18, 21, just like going on. He's now 53. He holds a master's degree and a couple other things. Like nature, the not the permissiveness of family, but the driving force behind family and of encouragement and things like that is so much more effective than any sort of structured program that can be instituted by any sort of government or anything else like that. And I don't just say that because I benefited from that sort of situation without the knowledge that, maybe I could have used something else. But But that lack of permissiveness to just like allow yourself to be less than what you could strive for, that takes people so much farther than just being like, oh yeah, let's just try and make this as easy for you as possible. Hospice should not begin six minutes after birth. Where I've seen it, like, that might be an excessive way of saying it, but a lot of things here in Michigan that I've seen for treatment of disabled people is basically just, well, let's just try and keep you as comfortable as possible until you die, and then you're not a problem anymore. Again, may have a skewed perspective on that.
No, I fully agree.
I
mean, there are circumstances where maybe that is the route that should be taken, but like those are pretty rare circumstances, in my opinion.
Like if someone, so at this point, my friend, he is 53, 54, I forget which, but and his body is breaking down. There's only so far that he can actually take it, but it's breaking down now after he's got a master's degree, after he's gone to Bible college, after he's testified in front of Congress, after he's held down a job for 25 years. After all those things, that's when it starts to break down.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot tell me that he has lived anything less than a full and fulfilling life.
Yeah.
And it was all because of the propulsion that he had, not from any of his teachers, not from any of his social workers, not from anything else like that, but because of the driving force of his mother being like, hey, you can do this, let's keep going.
Yeah. The support system is definitely key.
Yes. Right. C. Symptoms must be present in the early developmental period, but may not become fully manifest until social demands exceed limited capacities, or may be masked by learned strategies in life. Yep.
Yep, we do a lot of masking.
Like I said, I've done a lot of research to figure out how to, like, for about a year, I watched a couple of I watched this one YouTube channel in particular just to teach myself better body language when I'm communicating with people. And like stupid stuff that you typically would never look at or notice if someone was doing one of the hidden tells of disinterest. But I put in like hours.
Crossing your arms.
Crossing your arms is actually not a sign of disinterest. Sometimes you just don't know what to do with your arms.
That's not what one of my teachers told me.
Your teacher was probably operating under old information. At one point, it was considered rude to cross your arms. That was a cultural thing. But crossing your arms.
They told me that I was being closed and standoffish.
I mean,
it's like, no, I just don't know what to do with my arms.
Yes, exactly. That's why that's no longer considered a thing. You're not being closed off. You're not being standoffish. You are just like, I have these. They're kind of, I don't want to just, it's uncomfortable for me to just let them hang at my side. Let me do something with them. Mm-hmm. If I tuck them in, they don't hurt. It's, I don't know. It's amazing that, God designed them in such a way as to do that. We should all be thankful for this. But yeah. One of the big things that will denote a lack of interest, and it's one of the things that you have to consciously look for, is people's feet. If their feet are pointed toward you, they're paying attention. If their feet are pointed away from you, they're trying to get out of that conversation. And
pay attention to my feet.
What?
I don't ever pay attention to my feet. My feet are just there.
See, that's the thing. That's why it's such a great tell, because nobody pays attention to their feet. And really, this was not being said like, okay, you should change your behavior to do this so that it's to not be picked up as being, uncaring or disinterested. It's like if you're in a conversation with somebody and you look down and you notice their feet and you see them pointed in a different direction, you should try and change up the conversation or bring it to an end, because they're signaling to you unconsciously that they don't want to be there anymore. I took it as meaning, well, whether I want to be in there or not, I should try and reorient my feet so as to try and keep myself in the conversation more and be more present while I'm talking with somebody. Reverse engineering this psychological trick.
How'd that work out for you?
Not terrible. People have told me I'm a great listener. All right. Learn strategies, social demands. Yeah, got that. Symptoms cause clinically significant impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of current functioning.
See, this is where I lost my therapist.
How
She
so?
was like, "Is this impairing your day-to-day life?" And I was like, "Well, no, it's not, because I've dealt with it my entire life and have learned how to cope with it."
Yeah, well. See, here's the thing. This question, or not necessarily a question, but this statement kind of lacks perspective. Do your symptoms cause clinically significant impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of current functioning? I don't know. I've never had normal function. Fair. I don't know what unimpaired me looks like. I know that he who is quite likely impaired me is 30 and single. You might say that there is a significant impairment in my social, occupational, and other important areas of current functioning. I don't know. It's possible. It could be that I say things very, very bluntly in a overly dispassionate way, which makes it sound like I don't care about your feelings at all. And I do. And that might turn people off from me. That's very likely. In fact, that's been said to me on multiple occasions from multiple different people. Most recently, my pastor was like, "Hey, you should be really careful when you're talking to a group of people that you don't say such and such a thing, because some people could be offended by that or take that personally." And I'm like, "Why would they do that? I don't understand." And this was like 3 weeks ago. That's actually one of the things that got me started on this. I'm like, okay, how can I try and relate better to my audience? And then I started to, one rabbit hole led to another, and here we are. So yeah, it might be significantly causing impairment, but I don't know. I don't have a alternative frame of reference to compare it against.
Fair.
I mean, it's kind of like my catch-all answer for the number one crap question that women ask their husbands. I look fat in this dress.
My goodness.
Take it off. I need a different point of reference.
No. Bad Gavi.
Hey. I have faith in that question. At some point in the future, it will come up. I am prepared.
Oh, my goodness.
If you're ever going to call and be like, "Hey, can I stay with you for like 3 days?" Do you know why? Of course, this would be after I convinced some girl to get past the face.
And apparently either I moved to Michigan or you moved to Alabama.
No. Alabama might be preferable depending on how angry she is. I need some distance.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. And here it says, these disturbances are not better explained by intellectual disability, intellectual development disorder, or global developmental delay. Intellectual disability and autism spectrum disorder frequently co-occur, make comorbid diagnoses of autism spectrum disorder and intellectual disability. Social communication should be below that expected for general developmental level. Individuals with well-established DSM-4 diagnosis of autistic disorder, Asperger's disorder, or pervasive developmental disorder are not otherwise specified should be given the diagnosis of autism. Autism spectrum disorder, individuals who have marked deficits in social communication but whose symptoms do not otherwise meet criteria for autism spectrum disorder should be evaluated for social pragmatic communication disorder. Well, that just means they're on their cell phone too much and need to talk to people. But that's a whole other story. We can't help that. Interesting. I have an issue with their table here at the bottom. Because they have severity levels, level 3, level 2, level 1.
Yeah.
Level 3 is requiring very substantial support. Level 2 is requiring substantial support, and level 1 is requiring support. They need a level 0 that does not require support. Because, I mean, if we've made it this far, I guess I could read the rest of the table here and figure out like what they're actually referring to. Okay, so social communication from the lowest level. Without supports in place, deficits in social communication cause noticeable impairments. Actually, throwing this out here, did I send you the meme about how the World Health Organization has classified a lack of ability to gain a sexual partner as a disability?
Nope.
Well, the World Health Organization has classified the lack of ability of a person to gain a sexual partner to be a disability. So there we are. So I don't know if they've got an official diagnosis for it yet. I could probably come up with some interesting ideas, but like there's a meme going around now, like, you know, I'm waiting on my check, or but without supports in place, deficits in social communication cause noticeable impairments. Well, apparently that would be causing an impairment, potentially, maybe, if this could be tied directly to that. Difficulty initiating social interactions and clear examples of atypical or unsuccessful responses to social overtures of others. Noted. May appear to have decreased interest in social interactions. Is that autism or is that just being introverted? I don't know. For example, a person who is able to speak in full sentences and engages in communication, but whose to and fro conversation with others fails, and whose attempts to make friends are odd and typically unsuccessful. Fair point. Inflexibility of behavior causes significant interference with functioning in one or more contexts. Difficulty switching between activities, problems of organization, and planning hamper independence. Okay, so I don't think, like I said, I think they do need like a lower level than this, because restricted repetitive behaviors, that one, like, I don't like to switch between things, but if I absolutely have to, I can make it work. It's uncomfortable for me. I don't like it, but I can adapt if absolutely necessary. I will probably complain about it later. But all the stuff
on
in
the
podcast. What? Yeah, on this podcast. on social, under the social communication thing, is like, oh yeah, all those are actually like pretty significant points that, yeah, those probably do apply. Probably. I'm just realizing that, not realizing, but remembering this now. A couple weeks ago, we had gone roller skating, and then after that, we went to a Middle Eastern restaurant that was still open, and we got some takeout just before they closed up. And we walked outside, and there was no tables or anything. So one of the guys who was with us, he popped on the bed of his truck, and some people were sitting in the bed and sitting on the tailgate. And then there was like one bench, and I was like the last person to get my food, and I walk up, and like, while I was collecting my food and getting everything together, everyone outside, all people that I know and friends of mine, were like, so is Gavin going to, that's just my name, I don't care. Is Gavin going to sit on the only person who's going to hear this is Sasquatch and maybe your therapist. Is Kevin going to sit on this bench between two women, which is like a thing that I have personally, biblically, and a couple other just practical reasons. Is he going to sit on this bench between the two women, or is he just going to stand and try and eat his, falafel? And I'm like, at that point, I was totally exhausted. I'm just going to sit. But like, half the people had bet that I was going to stand up because that would have been more, while that would have been a less normal social interaction or thing to do in that situation, we just sit down. It was more normal for me to have not done that. Subjectivity.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
And like, it wasn't just that I noticed things, but like the people who I am around a lot who have noticed these things about me to the point where they're like, is he going to do this, or is he going to break from what he would normally do? And it's apparently enough of a thing that they were all aware of it and were discussing it among themselves in my absence before I joined them.
Yeah, I have something similar where I can't sit at the in the middle somewhere. I usually sit in the aisle, or I have to have at least a seat between me and a stranger.
I get that.
Or if I'm like at a restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
I won't sit in the middle. I sit on either the heads of the table, or I'll sit on where there's open aisle on my right or my left.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care which, as long as there's an open side. And so it's gotten to the point where everybody in my life that matters knows this about me.
Right.
And so I used to have to fight for that seat sometimes. And now it's just like, oh, that's where you're going to sit.
Yeah. Like, I don't get that thing so much at restaurants, because at some point there's just like a practical thing where it's not going to work out. You just kind of got to sit where you you have to.
To the point
Mm-hmm.
that after my wedding, we all went to Cracker Barrel to eat.
Yeah.
Because we're highfalutin society, so
Hey,
we go to the best place in town.
catfish all day, man.
And when me and my ex-wife had gotten there, they had left 2 seats open for us to sit right in the middle.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't do it.
Ooh.
Nope, I went and sat on the end, on the far end from everybody. And they're like, why won't you sit over here? I'm not sitting over there. Can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Won't do it.
Mm-hmm. Fair. Like I said, mine's not that bad, but like I can definitely understand like not wanting to be there in that sort of situation. But like sitting at like in church or things like that always has to be like the aisle seat. And then I actually just started sitting on the front row, and that seemed to have solved a lot of my issues with that.
Yeah, that's I did that too. Was I would just sit on the front row.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, that led me to be, a lot of people saw me as like a spiritual leader kind of thing in the youth. And I was like, no. That's not why I sit up here.
I'm sitting up here for me, not for you.
Exactly.
Work out your own salvation without me. Not my input. Get out of here. Leave me alone.
Go away.
If you don't stop throwing your kids at me, I'm going to train them wrong because I think it's funny.
But yeah, like we had Bible trivia thing that we were doing one time, which stupidest thing in the world. About 40% of the Bible trivia is not even Bible trivia. It's just Church of God trivia.
Mm-hmm.
Like state bishop names and all that kind of crap. Like, that doesn't matter at all. But
I don't know.
The really stupid thing about it is that you don't need to know the Bible they give you the questions and the answers that they're going to be asking, and you memorize the questions and the answers, and like to the point where there are some groups that memorize them so well that they can answer the question by the first two words or less of the question. Like the person asking the question will say what, and they will know the answer to the question.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's only one question that starts with the word what.
Yeah.
And so it was the stupidest thing in the world. But anyways, unbeknownst to me, we get there to this competition and they're like, okay, who's your team captain? And everybody pointed at me. And I was like, okay, when did we vote this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when did that become the thing? But yeah, we got obliterated because it was a stupid, like,
yeah,
I hated it so much.
Mm-hmm. So I did something very different when I was younger. We actually did Bible quizzing where you memorized large portions of the Bible and then you were asked questions about those verses.
When I was in we called it Boys Brigade.
Yeah.
We actually had where he would be like, okay, go and study the book of Luke.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would have questions on the book of Luke. And then, we did that for a long time. But this was the Church of God. I forget what they call it. Teen Talent is what they called it. And this was just one of their competitions that they had was Bible trivia. And it was like when I heard they're going to do Bible trivia, I was like game for it. I was like, oh, that's sweet. Let's do it. And then there was like, okay, here you go. Here's the book with all the questions and the answers. And I'm like, wait, what? No, the book with the questions and the answers is right here, holding up the Bible. It's like, no, this is what we should be studying.
Yes.
Like, it was just the most disappointing thing in my entire life. I hated it so much.
Yeah, our Bible quizzing was very different. Very different. They would either just say, like maybe 2 questions a quiz would be like, okay, just quote the verse of our study, like quote this verse or quote the verse of our study that, contains the word 3 times. In the year we were studying John, that would have been John chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Yeah, that would have been awesome. I would have loved that. In fact,
it's a lot of fun.
In fact, when we started doing small groups at our church, my previous church,
yeah,
I actually started a Bible quiz small group, and I literally took an Arduino and made buzzards because that was cheaper than buying actual buzzers. And then I would say, okay, go and read these books of the Bible, and I'm going to ask you questions from them. And yeah, it was a train wreck because like nobody showed up. Yeah. Like I had a good group of people that signed up for it, but they just didn't show up.
Nobody wanted to actually do the work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Quizzers.
It was very, very disheartening.
Like when I was in quizzing, it was hard work, but it's so much more now. It's actually a lot more competitive now than it was back then. I know quizzers who spend like 2 hours a day preparing for quizzes and such every day for like 8 months out of the year. It's
what are you posting?
What am I posting?
We have previously trained him wrong as a joke.
One of the greatest movies of all time for all the wrong reasons. There, kung-pow, enter the fist. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I actually did that to a kid one time.
Trained him wrong as a joke.
Yeah, I told him that when you would ask him what do cows say, he would say eat more chicken. I think I've actually talked about this on the podcast before.
I don't think so. I think I'd remember that. But I mean...
but yeah, I trained him so that he would say, when we would say, what sound does a cow make, he would say, eat more chicken. And to the point that he like in preschool, they were trying to teach them the sounds of the animals.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say, "What sound does a cow make?" And he would say, "Eat more chicken." And they thought it was hilarious. Like the first 3 times he did it.
Mm-hmm. And then the fourth
And then
time, it was
after
not
that,
so funny.
exactly. And then they finally broke him of it, and it made me sad. Because I would be like, "What sound does a cow make?" And he'd be like, "Moo." And I was like, "No, it says eat more chicken." He'd be like, "No, it doesn't. It says moo." And then every now and again, he would laugh and go, "Eat more chicken."
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah.
Of course, the thing is, that's very subjective.
Is it?
Yep. Every culture, every language has a different word for what animals say.
That's probably true. I don't know.
Like in English, cats meow, right?
Suppose.
Yeah, in like Japanese, it's nya. And
Yeah.
it's something different in Russian, which I don't remember what the Russian was. I got to that lesson and then I quit.
But doesn't it just translate to meow?
It translates to meow, but it's a different phonetic sound,
Yeah.
which begs the
Because
question.
it's a different language.
Well, which begs the question: if it's a different phonetic sound, do animals make noises in different accents?
I don't know, man. They're all British in Disney movies.
This is true. That is true. Point conceded. Actually, I take it back. Point not conceded. Those 2 hound dogs in Aristocats.
I was just being funny. Because the first thing that popped up in my head was the dog from oh my goodness. Got it in my head, but my brain's not helping.
What's it about?
I'm gonna go find it as soon as Google lets.
Searching through the internet without parameters. I wonder what it'll come up with. Probably not anything good.
Um, Disney, fix your searches.
British dog in Disney.
No, it's not a British dog. My thought process was, oh, that one doesn't have a British accent. Like it was literally the first one I thought of, and I was like, oh, that one doesn't have a British accent.
One from Oliver and Company?
Yes. Yes.
Like, yeah, he does not have a British accent. 9 of them do.
No.
No, I take it back. There's like one that has a British accent. The bulldog, I think.
Yes, Oliver and Company. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'm good for some things.
Tell you who does have a British accent though, is the mouse that saved Disney.
Mouse that saved Disney.
Yep. The Great Mouse Detective.
Oh, yes, yes.
That was the first movie in the Renaissance for Disney. That was after Walt Disney had died. They say that's the Renaissance, but they're going by box office.
Gotcha.
And a lot of the movies that they say were crap, according to the box office, are like some of my favorite movies.
Say that again. You cut out for a second.
I said, a lot of the movies that they say were crap before the Renaissance are actually some of my favorite movies.
You mean like The Black Cauldron?
Yes.
Such
a good movie.
Oh.
I love it so much. But yeah, like the Bronze Age of Disney movies.
Yeah, there's some real quality stuff out there.
Um, uh, oh, IMDb calls it the Dark Ages. The Aristocrats is part of that. The Aristocrats was the first one that's part of that. I love that movie.
I think that we talked about this I think last week. Like that is the movie that I have rewatched more and more frequently than any other film.
Yeah. Robin Hood, that's like one of my favorite Disney movies.
So Robin Hood is good, but it is also
Robin Hood and Little John trotting through the forest.
Back and forth about what the other has to say.
Yeah.
If you watch it though, it's actually really funny because they reuse much animation.
Well, they didn't reuse the animation. They had to redraw everything.
They didn't. They didn't redraw it. They just recolored cells from the Jungle Book and a couple other things. So there's original artwork from the Jungle Book and a bunch of other earlier movies that are just gone and destroyed because they're like trying to save money, so they just recolored cells and slapped them into Robin Hood.
Yeah, but like I was saying, they still had to paint over them.
Paint over them, yes, but like not create new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm well aware of that. The Rescuers. I love The Rescuers.
Rescuers is amazing.
The Fox and the Hound. Like
that's like the first sad movie I ever watched.
That's what?
That's like the first sad movie I ever watched.
Yeah. Like if you don't cry watching The Fox and the Hound, we can't be friends.
We may not be friends anymore, but that's it takes a lot to make me cry.
Well,
man.
yeah, you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
The Black Cauldron.
Mm-hmm.
And then actually this one has The Great Mouse Detective in this list. But The Great Mouse Detective is widely known as the start of the Renaissance.
It's great.
And then Oliver and Company is the tail end of that, according to this IMDb list.
Like out of that whole list, Oliver and Company is probably the weakest entry.
Yeah, and that's saying something because Oliver and Company is pretty good.
See, some things are better aged than they are when they come out. I could probably see why The Black Cauldron wasn't a big draw in Hollywood when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
But now that it's aged and like we're older and everything else, like yeah, that might be one of Disney's top 10 greatest films.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Like I would say a good half of those movies are better than Lady and the Tramp, which is considered in the Silver Age.
Yeah,
when Disney was still alive.
Yeah, Lady and the Tramp is
boring.
Yeah. I mean, and I would probably say that most of those are also better than, I know this is blasphemous, better than Jungle Book. Because Jungle Book doesn't really have...
That is blasphemous. Jungle Book.
I know, it is good.
And I would say that pretty much everything is better than Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty is my least favorite of all Disney movies.
I have appreciation for its title song. But it does kind of meander and go nowhere. Which is kind of my critique for their presentation of Jungle Book as well. It kind of meanders and doesn't...
Ooh. Of course, then again we have the Disney Renaissance with classics such as Aladdin, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Tarzan, Rescuers Down Under, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, The Little Mermaid, Hercules, Pocahontas, and Mulan. That was a good time for Disney.
Like, that was a good time for everybody because we all got to watch that.
That's true. Then we have the post-Renaissance era.
Uh-huh.
which starts off strong
With?
and ends strong. It starts off strong with Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, that's so good.
So good. Then we have Home
Leland.
on the Range.
Very forgettable film.
Very forgettable film. We have Bolt, which I've never even seen.
I've seen it.
I know it exists. I've just never seen it.
It's also very forgettable. Like,
Brother Bear.
good movie.
The musical score is phenomenal.
Yes.
Like,
Tell
people talk about,
I'm on my way.
yes, people talk about how over the top the music in Lion King is. Apparently have never heard of Brother Bear because the music in that is amazing. Then we have Chicken Little.
Eh.
We have Dinosaur.
Decent.
Eh.
I have appreciation for Dinosaur.
I mean, it's a pretty film.
Yes.
I don't remember much of it. I've seen it once.
It is basically their take on The Land Before Time.
Then we have 2000's Fantasia.
Fantasia,
which is
good.
Which is just a remake of the original.
Lilo and Stitch.
Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, that's in a class all its own.
Yeah. Atlantis: The Lost Empire.
Oh, maybe it's
Love
not in a
that
class
movie.
all its own because that's also a really good one.
Kiragakash. Kiragash? Can I just call you Kita? Then Meet the Robinsons.
Oh,
I love that movie.
It's so good. It was just like my favorite line. I think Milo was autistic because he's like, oh yeah, I'm feeling pretty. I swim pretty girl. pretty good. Meet the Robinsons. One of my favorite Disney movies. Okay, that one it takes a lot for me to cry. That one almost got me at the end. Happy endings get me way better than sad ones.
Yeah.
Like I didn't cry the first 3 minutes of Up, but they did get me at Memories Can Weigh You Down.
Yeah.
Like the first 3 minutes is traumatic, but then it's like, oh, but it's actually so happy. Oh.
And then the most underrated film of all time.
Treasure Planet?
Treasure Planet.
Yeah. That's when they were like, if only they hadn't sabotaged their own film. You know?
Yeah. Absolutely. Treasure Planet is so good. All right, and then we come into the revival era.
Mm-hmm.
Which is Big Hero 6.
Mm-hmm.
Frozen.
Whoa.
What?
Aren't we like skipping like a whole bunch of movies?
Uh-uh.
It feels like we are. Like the next thing after the next thing after Treasure Planet was Big Hero 6. Because Treasure Planet was like 2001.
Treasure Planet was 2009.
Really?
These also may not be in order.
I'm like, there's no way.
No, Treasure Planet was 2002.
Okay, it's like there's no way that was 2009.
Okay. So these are not in order then.
Okay, like yeah.
So Big Hero 6, Frozen,
Mm-hmm.
Princess and the Frog, Tangled,
Mm-hmm.
Winnie the Pooh, and Wreck-It Ralph.
This is blasphemous, but like, the weakest entry on there is Frozen. There's all the ones that I'm thinking of.
That is blasphemy. Send it to me.
Well, no. So,
or just say them.
Okay, so there's a bunch of stuff that we left out here. So like, Home on the Range, 2004. Valiant. I don't know if I ever saw Valiant. Chicken Little, we talked about that. There is, I was ready to, like all of Disney's properties here. Bolt.
Oh, you're right. We did miss a ton. A Goofy movie.
Yeah, extremely goofy movie. I just saw it here. Frank and Weenie, Winnie the Pooh, Mars Needs Moms, which was a atrocious thing. Romeo and Juliet, also atrocious in every possible way.
I love Romeo and Juliet.
I hate that so much. I love everything in me makes me want to just destroy that.
I think Ducky had an aversion to that movie as well, but I love
good reasons. Disney's Planes, Enchanted. Oh, did you hear they're making a sequel to Enchanted?
Enchanted?
The one where it starts out in the animated world and they like fall into.
I don't think I've ever actually watched that movie all the way through.
It's like a classic Disney movie, but there's like people in it. I don't know how they're going to try and do a sequel. I guess more than 10 years later. 14 years later, they're going to do a sequel to Enchanted with the same actors. And, okay. I guess we're going to see what that's like. I guess they're all going to go back, like the other way.
James and the Giant Peach.
Weird, but good. Oh, look, you skipped over The Little Mermaid? I don't think so.
I don't think I skipped over The Little Mermaid.
I don't remember you saying it, but,
Yeah, I definitely said it during the Disney Renaissance. Between Lion King and Hercules.
Fine, staying out of that. James and the Giant Peach. Who did direct that? Yep. It was produced by Tim Burton. Directed by Henry Selick. No idea who that is. Let's see. The Tigger movie. Forgot about that one.
Where he went to go try and find his family.
Mm-hmm.
Because he realized he wasn't the only Tigger.
Yep.
Jungle Book 2.
Mm-hmm.
Piglet's big movie.
Mm-hmm.
Finding Nemo. This is adding Pixar to
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still Disney.
Yeah. Did you see Spies in Disguise?
Spies in Disguise.
Yeah, it's from like 2019. It has.
I did. Yes.
I did not see it. It looked very foolish to me, and I didn't want to spend my time foolishly.
I don't remember much of it, except for I remember Will Smith being in it. Will
Smith and Tom Holland.
Oh wait, no, I haven't seen this. No.
Okay.
I've just watched the. That wasn't a Disney movie though.
Yeah, it was.
20th Century Fox.
Oh, as soon as they bought the studio, they just started adding things in. Okay. I get. So if you scroll, I don't know what page you're on, but the page I'm on, if you scroll down far enough, it starts showing all the stuff that they did dual releases with for like Studio Ghibli and things like that. Which, by the way, Studio Ghibli, if you haven't seen any Studio Ghibli films, watch some Studio Ghibli films.
Not.
What? Highest grossing Disney film of all time is still The Lion King. I can't even name
a Studio Ghibli film.
So many good ones. Howl's Moving Castle, Spirited Away, Tales from Earthsea, Secret World of Arrietty, Princess Mononoke. If you want to hurt yourself, Grave of the Fireflies. It's not much you can do beyond hurting. Not much more you can do to yourself than watch Grave of the Fireflies. That will mess you up. Oh, we forgot Zootopia.
We did forget Zootopia.
How dare we?
I'm just now realizing this is the longest podcast we've done in a while.
It is the longest podcast we've done in a while. Or I don't know.
We're coming up on 3 hours.
No, we're only coming up on like 2.5 because we started late. We're just over 2.5 hours right now.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Mm-hmm. Well, we did self-diagnose ourselves for all of our mental deficiencies. That takes a while.
Yeah. And we only did autism. We could also do ADHD and ADD.
Well, one of us can do that. I don't know if I can make it to ADD and ADHD.
You want to try?
Did you have the DSM-5 sheet?
I don't even know how we got onto Disney movies.
Does it matter? We always get on Disney movies.
That's fair. I just like to know. I like to be able to trace it back.
Well, we started talking about the Black Cauldron that was somehow related to it. How we got on the Black Cauldron, I'm not sure. Something was said about oddly good.
We were talking about. This is stupid. We were talking about British
accent,
British animals. We were talking about animals having accents. That's exactly what we were doing. Oh my goodness.
Well, we caught that rabbit.
Anyways.
Wow.
ADHD.
I'm not sure if that's a clarification of how bad this podcast is, or if we just need to go back to calling it other things. What is it?
Oh my goodness.
Oh. You do have the DSM-5 for ADHD. Okay.
I sent it to you.
Yeah, I got it here. All right, so a persistent pattern of inattention and or hyperactivity, impulsivity that interferes with functioning or development as characterized by 1 and or 2. Inattention, 6 or more of the following symptoms that have persisted for at least 6 months to a degree that is inconsistent with the developmental level that negatively impacts directly on social and academic occupational activities. And here's the list. Often fails to give close attention to details or makes careless mistakes in schoolwork, at work, or during other activities. Overlooks or misses detail, work is inaccurate.
Yep, I miss details all the time. Like, one of the major reasons I would get B's in classes in high school was because I would make stupid mistakes. Like, I would get it back and go, oh crap, I forgot to put a decimal point there.
So I am very detail focused, but sometimes I focus on some details more than others. I don't think I qualify on that one. Like sometimes I focus on some details to the exclusion of others. So weird. Often has difficulty sustaining attention in tasks or play activities. Has difficulty remaining focused during lectures, conversations, or lengthy reading. I didn't used to have that big of a problem, but reading now is kind of an issue.
Yeah, I can't do it at all while reading, like, because I lose focus instantly, pretty much. Like, I'll be reading something, and I'll get to a point of it, and I'll start thinking about something. Like with the talking animals and Disney, like, I'll do that while reading. Something will grab my attention while reading, and I will just start thinking about that one thing. over and over and over again.
I mean, I guess I could say I qualify a little bit on that one because I get some of my best lessons and sermons while listening to other people's sermons, and then they say something, and I'll pick something that's not related to their topic at all out of that, and I'll spend a good portion of the rest of their message writing down notes for me to go back and teach something else later on.
Yeah.
So maybe halfway. Does not seem to listen when spoken to directly. Okay, but that one might got me.
Yeah. 100% me. My parents called it selective hearing.
Well, I mean, like, I have said I have uttered the phrase, if you say something to me and I am not actively engaged with you having said it, you might as well have not said it to me at all.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm not looking you in the face and like acknowledging every word, you should not plan on holding me accountable for anything it was that you said, because I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, I mean, just look at any conversation we've ever had about Star Wars.
Which is just personally hurtful to me. Okay, this one might be hurting too. Often does not follow through on instructions and fails to finish schoolwork, chores, or duties in the workplace. Starts tasks but quickly loses focus and is easily just sidetracked.
I never finished homework. That's like one of the main reasons I had to drop out of college was because I was doing fine on tests, mostly. It was just I didn't do the homework, and apparently that's a big deal.
It's a big deal. It's like 30% of your grade in some places.
Yeah. So I was failing classes because I didn't do the homework. Like literally, that was the only reason. I knew the material, and I knew, and I was getting decent grades on tests, but I didn't do the homework, and so I failed.
So, when I was in grade school, and like when I say grade school, I mean like all the way through the end of high school. I was an absolute nightmare to actually get to do schoolwork. Like, I would for like grade, from kindergarten to 8th grade or something like that. I did PACES, the ACE program, and looking back on it now, that would have been a fantastic program had I actually had the focus to sit and do PACES. Because if I'd have done that, I could have probably graduated in, when I was 14. Because they weren't hard. They weren't difficult. Not at all. But I was so bored by them and had so little connection to the paper in front of me that I found ways to distract myself through an infinite number of just office supplies that were at my desk. Like, I staged space battles on my desk because that was, to me, a lot better use of my time than having to complete PACES. Of course, it still had to get done, and so I would take all of my schoolwork every day home with me, and my mother would sit there at the table and make me finish it no matter how long it took, and sometimes it'd be like, midnight, and I'm finally just finishing up the last question. Or if I'd just focused on it, I could have completed all the day's work in like 2 hours. But I didn't want to. So that one probably qualifies. Are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here. I'm listening.
Okay. I just heard nothing, and I'm like, oh, once you could have jumped in there, but okay. All right. Often has difficulty organizing tasks and activities. Difficulty managing sequential tasks, difficulty keeping materials and belongings in order, messy, disorganized work, has poor time management, fails to meet deadlines. Some of those, not most of those.
Yeah, so I don't have a problem with deadlines or time management.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I do have a problem with time management, but it's the good problem. Like I do all of the work up front, and so then I'm just sitting there for the rest of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm very messy and disorganized. If you ever come and look at my work desk or my home desk,
Mm-hmm.
there's just chaos and clutter everywhere. But I know where everything is, so it doesn't
Yeah,
bother me.
I got you. I can kind of understand that. This next one though, that one hits a little bit closer to home. Often avoids, dislikes, or is reluctant to engage in tasks that require sustained mental effort.
Yep.
Schoolwork, homework, or for older adolescents and adults, preparing reports, completing forms,
Yep.
reviewing lengthy papers.
Uh huh.
I would I've said this before. I'd rather get punched in the balls than have a gout attack. I'd rather get punched in the balls than ever have to fill out another form again as long as I live. I
Yep.
hate forms. I hate paperwork. It causes me near physical pain to have to fill out a stupid form, all the little boxes. I hate them so much.
Yep. 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 Me too. And guess what?
Hmm.
That's most of my job is filling out paperwork.
We're hiring at the glass factory.
Don't think I haven't thought about it.
Oh. Often loses things necessary for tasks or activities, school materials, pencils, books, tools, wallets, keys, paperwork, eyeglasses, mobile telephones. Um, it didn't take me more than like 2 long walks home for me to stop locking my keys in the car. After that, I kind of got that sorted out.
Yeah.
Like you just figure out
I
a way to not
have
have that be an issue.
I have a place where I keep all of my things like that
Mm-hmm.
so that I don't lose them because I will lose them if I don't stick them in that place.
Yeah, I get you.
Like I have accidentally sat my wallet down somewhere obscure
Mm-hmm.
and spent hours looking for it
Yep.
only to see it plain as day in a specific spot where it's not supposed to be just because I accidentally left it there one time.
Like and as soon as you see it, you remember your rationale at the time. Oh, this is very
Yeah.
obvious. I'll remember that I put it here, and
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
don't.
Yep.
I mean, like, so I do the same thing. I have a spot where I keep my wallet, notepad, keys, a pen, my comb, and my pocket knife. And those are things I take with me everywhere, all the time, no matter what.
Yeah.
And maybe some other things that I don't talk. Well, I mean, I talked about them plenty on the podcast, but don't necessarily need to be included in that list of things I take with me everywhere all the time. Yeah. Is often or easily distracted by extraneous stimuli. For older adolescents and adults, may include unrelated thoughts. Again, I'm typically more interested in my own internal world than I am the world around me, but doesn't mean I'm not present.
I definitely have random thoughts that come out of nowhere. I can't think of one right now, but
Well,
I've had them.
I'll start talking and you'll have a random thought.
Oh, I had I had a random thought last night. So, um, everybody seems to think
Mm-hmm.
they either think that Broke Butt and I are dating,
Mm-hmm.
or they think we should,
Okay.
because we just spend so much time together.
There's an argument to be made there.
And I had the random thought last night at dinner that if something ever were to happen and Broke Butt and I were to start dating,
Mm-hmm.
telling you would be the funniest thing I could think to do.
It would be an interesting conversation.
So yeah, so that was a completely unrelated thought that I had last night during dinner.
That would solve like one of the biggest issues that was going to happen in October when you and Ducky were dating, because it was like, oh yeah, me and Brokebutt were not dating. We were basically dating at the time, and we're like, we're not dating. And I'm like, well, I'm still going to come down for the wedding and everything else like that. And and I was like, yeah, I guess I'm going to come down to Alabama and walk you down the aisle. And she just looked at me. She's like, what? I'm like, well, I don't really see any other way that that's gonna play out. I mean,
Oh no, it was fully our intention and our plan to have you guys walk down the aisle together.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, and I told her a couple of weeks ago, I was like, well, now that I'm not marrying Ducky,
Uh huh.
when I get a new potential wife,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be my best man, and then you get to stand beside Gabby the entire time.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you're going to make sure that the new girl has a sister so that can happen again.
No. I would never torture another female like that again.
That's fair.
But yeah, I told her it's gone from you and Gabby walking down the aisle together to you and Gabby standing beside each other during the entire ceremony.
Mm-hmm. Leaving that where it lies. Is often forgetful in daily activities, doing chores, running errands for older adolescents and adults, returning phone calls, paying bills, keeping appointments. For me, it's not returning calls; it's returning texts. If like Discord, I'm good because I have multiple reminders about things that happen on Discord. If you send me a text message, you should never expect me to get back to you within like a week. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I respond to text messages and stuff like that religiously, because if I don't, I'll just completely forget, and somebody will be like, "Hey, why didn't you respond to me?" It's like, "Oh, because I thought I did. I thought I was waiting on you."
Yeah.
But like, I mean, it's in our podcast last week. I forgot to go do my laundry last week, and so I had to get up in the middle of our podcast and go do my laundry.
We're yelling at each other through the podcast like an old married couple. Well, you got that taken care of yet?
Yeah.
All right.
I constantly forget daily activities.
Okay. I mean, I don't like I said, I don't really forget. The only thing I really forget is like returning text, and that's just because I hate texting. I really passionately hate texting. Hyperactivity and impulsivity, 6 or more of the following. Okay, let me total this up here. So, kind of I could probably leave off H and G. F for sure. Not really E. D, C. So I have like 4 or 5.
I can think of an instance for every single one of these.
Yeah.
Both past, present, and probably future.
Mm-hmm. Hyperactivity and impulsivity. So often fidgets or taps hands or feet or squirms in seat.
I do that constantly.
I mean, I'm moving my legs right now, but I don't know if that qualifies.
I think it qualifies.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm always moving. Like, I used to bite my fingernails all the time, and I've gotten to where I don't bite them unless they get snagged on something and I'm not near any clippers.
Mm-hmm. I'm the same way. I have the same issue.
My thumbnails have started to get where they get pretty long before they break or get snagged on something. And so when they're like, I've got them trimmed right now because they had gotten really long.
You're trying not to be a Philistine.
And so I was sitting here just, I get to where I just click them and clack them back and forth. Click, 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 click.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Just
that would be like a tactile texture thing that would drive me insane.
Speaking of tactile texture things, so you know on a pair of nail clippers how that has the file on it. The file drives me mad. Sometimes I have to use it, and so I bear through it. But like it sends tingles throughout my entire body the entire time I'm using it, and I hate it with a passion.
Oh, you mean like you file your nails?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't do that. I just don't. I'll just let them be all raggedy. I don't care.
Yeah, no. Sometimes it has to happen. I used to just use my blue jeans because blue jeans will do the same thing. If you just scratch your blue jeans, it'll file your nails down.
Mm-hmm.
But you know we're in a pandemic.
Yeah.
And I'm not wearing blue jeans right now. I am wearing very, very comfortable pants.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't do that.
Ooh. That hurts. Okay. Yeah.
Are you imagining filing your nails or something?
I don't like. I think I've tried to do it like 3 times in my life, and I just couldn't do it. again, kind of a tactile, just a braiding sort of sensation. I can't do
I hate it so much.
I can't do that. Clicking your nails, can't do that. Like I keep my nails trimmed, and like if like they start to, I'm wearing gloves right now full time, so if they start to press on the gloves, I'll clip them very quickly. If my toenails start to like get pressed on by my sock too hard, like that's okay, time to cut those too. So yeah, I cannot relate to that one. Often leave seat in situations where remaining seated is expected. Nope, not at all.
Yeah, I never have this issue.
Like, that's just a discipline thing, and my parents solved that with a paddle, so we're good on that.
Yeah, no, I've never had an issue staying seated.
I don't know if this one qualifies or not, but I think it's worth noting. Often runs about or climbs in situations where it is inappropriate. In adolescents or adults may be limited to feeling restless. Have you done the all fours run up the stairs?
No.
Oh, that as a kid, that was the thing. Like that was the thing. Like run up the stairs just as fast as you can on all fours. That was the way to go.
I did often scoot my butt going downstairs. Just like getting to the edge and plop, plop, plop.
I never had enough padding on my butt to make that feasible. It hurt
either, it was fun.
By the fifth step, I was done.
But my grandmother had the perfect stairs because they were carpeted, and so if you could get it at the right angle,
you could go down a couple
sit
stairs.
At the right, you could go. I always got in trouble for doing it.
I've done that unintentionally. That was not great. Although I did get caught one time at the law firm. I was running up and down the stairs a lot just because of everything that was going on there. And I discovered that it was faster to skip the steps on the way down. It's faster to skip the steps on the way up, too. So you just take 2 or 3 steps with every stride. On the way down, though, you could really speed it up because you could grab the banister railings at the top of the flight and kind of launch yourself forward, and well, at least I could, and like just skip all the steps and just land at the bottom, and then you pull a 180 and jump down the rest of them, and you could be down 6 flights of stairs in about 10 seconds. Didn't take long at all. But one time I did this, and I was mid-air, and the door opens at the bottom of the stairwell, and one of the attorneys comes out, and he's like, "Well, I guess that's one way to do it."
That's funny.
So I don't know if that qualifies or not. That might just be being an idiot. Often unable to play or engage in leisure activities quietly. Not really an issue for me.
Nope, me either.
Is often on the go, acting as if driven by a motor. Is unable to be or uncomfortable being still for extended time, as in restaurants, meetings may experience others as being restless or difficult to keep up with. No.
Nope.
Often talks excessively. Crap.
Yeah, you definitely do that one there, bud.
And the next one too. Often blurts out an answer before a question has been completed. Completes people's sentences.
Did that one as well.
Cannot wait for a turn in conversation. Like, okay, sometimes it's like they're like, I'm watching them and it hurts me because I know the word that they're trying to find, and they're just like searching through their vocabulary, and they're like have a Rolodex that they're flipping over like one card at a time, and they're like, "Is it this?" I'm like, "It's just this word. Can we move on with our day?" I'm not that invested in this conversation. I just want to do something else. I'm sorry. And I apologize for interrupting. It's a thing. Yeah.
Yep.
Often has difficulty waiting in his or her turn in line. Nope, not an issue. Nope.
Like I do that to like an extreme sometimes, where I'm like I am in so much not a hurry that if somebody behind me looks like they are, I'm like, go ahead.
I do that all the time.
I've got nowhere to be.
Like, I've been a counselor at camp for a number of years now, and I have a thing that I do while I'm there, which is very atypical for a lot of the counselors, and I'm you know very confused as to why it's not just the norm. Apparently, it's the camp culture that all the counselors and staff go through the line first, and then like the kids are waiting outside while the adults eat all the food. I'm like, well, that's not at all how this is supposed to happen.
Nope.
Aren't we supposed to go at the end? And so I
Yep.
stand in
First shall
line,
be last, last shall be first. Come on,
and
people.
so I just stand in line with all the kids, and I don't mean like I just stand in line and wait my turn. I send all the kids through, and I'm the last person to come in through the door.
Yep.
Which again is also part of that Black Rhino thing, where I'm just like I'm keeping an eye on these kids to make sure they aren't doing stupid. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah. So anytime I'm in a situation where there's like a food line or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even get up. I just sit there and wait until there is no line, and then I go up.
Yeah. The only
And
time
part of that is me being lazy, and part of that is me not wanting to go first.
fair, the only time that I will actively like try and get a semi-favorable spot in line for food is on Thursday nights right now, where I have to teach, and so I have to like get food down and be ready to teach and not be like stuffing my face at the same time as I'm trying to teach a room full of people. It doesn't work out very well. If I have a time constraint, then then it's different. But otherwise, I'm like, I'll be the last one through. Please let me be the last one through.
Yeah.
He often interrupts or intrudes on others, butts into conversations, games, or activities, may start using other people's things without asking or receiving permission. For adolescents and adults may intrude into or take over what I'm doing. Not so much.
Nope.
I've done it a couple times, but not really. And usually it's just like I won't notice, which I think this is more of like a social cue thing, as it would be like applicable in this situation where I just didn't pick up on the social cue. And I'll just walk up to somebody and start talking to them and not even realize that there was somebody else there that they were talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a totally different situation. And several inattentive or hyperactive impulse symptoms were present prior to age 12. No,
Yep.
not for me, but for you, apparently.
Uh-huh.
Several inattentive or hyperactive impulsive symptoms are present in 2 or more settings, e.g., at school, home or work, with friends or relatives and other activities.
Absolutely.
There is clear evidence that the symptoms interfere with or reduce the quality of social, academic, or occupational functioning.
Probably. I wouldn't know.
The symptoms do not occur exclusively during the course of schizophrenia or other psychotic disorder. Are you schizophrenic, masters?
Maybe.
And, here's the other thing, and are not better explained by another mental disorder, mood disorder, anxiety disorder, dissociative disorder, personality disorder, substance intoxication, or withdrawal. Your ADD may be a function of autism.
Fair. Good probability.
I don't know. I'm just learning about all this week. So, the really great learning experience. I don't know why this just strikes me so funny, but it does. I'm posting this to World's Worst podcast thread. I think it's a self-explanatory picture. It needs no further instructions to understand. Oh, man.
I don't get it.
He's a man apparently sitting on the toilet for quite some time playing on his phone. And he no longer can feel his lower half.
It have to do with
Because static, tingles, pins and needles, his legs fell asleep.
I don't know. So between that.
Okay, you're only
What you're
picking up like
describing.
every half of third word.
That's because I was mumbling.
I know. This
I
is.
do not understand the association between that picture and the words you were saying.
Have you ever sat on a toilet for an excessively long period of time?
Yes, I understand the concept. I
Okay.
don't understand what static has to do with it.
The pins and needles sensation of standing up and your legs are asleep.
Yes, I understand that feeling.
That
I don't
is.
understand the static.
It's human static. That's the correlation that the person who made the image is attempting to make. That is the correlation I
Well,
am attempting to communicate. Apparently, I am failing, and apparently, they failed too. I apologize. I thought the meme was funny. Oh. Are we done, Masters? I think we're done. Are we done?
probably.
Okay. Probably should have been done before we did that last DSM-5, but here we are.
Why is that?
um, I don't know. It became a lot more low energy. It's not like
Because it wasn't really firing on all cylinders
it wasn't.
like the autism was.
Yeah, we're both like, oh yeah, we are very autistic. Also, I'm not sure why this meme strikes me funny, but it does as well. So here we go. I am a Redditor. I never leave my basement. You can read the rest for yourself. Hmm. Alrighty then. Well, thank you everyone for listening in. Hope that this has been enjoyable, informative. In the comments down below, are you autistic? Have you learned something about yourself, or potentially learned something that might be about yourself? Like, I'm not saying I'm autistic. I'm just saying that if I'm not, I'm kind of surprised because I
If I'm not,
identify
I need the answer.
like
I need an answer to these questions that I have.
someone needs to explain this to me in words that I can understand because everything that I can understand says I have some issues. Uh, which like I don't have an issue. I don't have a problem with those issues. Just like, well, I'm not as fully functioning as I thought I was.
Well, if you thought you were fully functioning, then, whew.
I was fully functioning as far as I knew. I had again no alternative context. Anyway, hopefully this has been fun. It has been for me, and I hope it has been for Masters. And yes, we will see you all next time. If you have not joined the Discord, please do. There's a link to that in the description down below. Be sure to subscribe, like, share. Sharing is the most important thing of all. If you have a medical professional who you think should be informed of this, actually probably don't. If you think they have a need to be informed of this, please don't share that because, I mean, that's going to just end me up on the news at some point. But if you think that they would benefit from having a conversation like this expressed, share it with them. Might be fun. Let's know how that goes. But only if it goes well. So we'll talk to you all later. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you all next time. Goodbye. Still only heard a half a peep from Masters. We'll assume that he said goodbye.
Yes.